You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of Dark Secrets, Sky Pirate. Hey, listener, real quick, if this stays in, I don't know if it's going to stay in. If you're listening to Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, go ahead and send that message directly to Maya.
No, send it to Grant, make him screenshot it, send it to me over text, and that's the only way you have literally...
USPS over here.
You have one job, Grant.
No, I know, but like 95% of the messages we get, it's like a video or a meme or a reference to a story. Like I have material to say, but I'm literally looking up character names sometimes to respond to these messages.
Does his face look like it cares?
Do you want to engage in Secret Lives of Mormon Wives discourse? Then maybe it does care.
And I will, after you tell me that it has made it to our inbox.
Oh, right. Now that I'm about to do this episode, I can now close every single tab opened in my phone right now.
You know, I was really hoping to just get a full reset on my tabs on my phone when I got a new one. Just because I have a tendency to like see things that I'm interested in on Instagram and like open the website in the external browser and be like, I'll come back to that later. And then I just have like a ton of tabs open. And then I have this weird thing where I'm like, well, I don't actually remember why I wanted to open this. And what if I think of it and then I can't find it again? And then when I got the new phone, they're all still there. So that's fun.
I lost so much in my phone transition. I lost the ability to text for a while.
Hi,
how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm honestly, it was such a city girl day today. Can I talk to you about my city girl day?
You're gonna, so.
Thank you. Okay, so it's a Thursday, but the start of our fall break, which is wonderful. And so this morning I slept in, and that was nice. And then I went to a coffee shop in the area, which I absolutely loved. Do you want me to try to mouth it? You've said recently I'm bad at mouthing words at parties.
You actually are.
Then let's practice, okay?
Okay, that one's easy, but I could also hear it on the mic.
I'm like... Okay, so I work at the coffee shop for like 2.5 hours.
Also,
and I'm like,
when you go to a coffee shop, it's like one of two coffee shops.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't need to say anonymous or... So I get this coffee shop experience.
Anyway, Grant's looking at... Moving to
be your neighbor.
1, 2, 2, 3.
I'm now reconsidering moving next to my number one bully.
Lydia.
She just asks such cutting questions sometimes. Story
really
time, not
does.
the one that I was.
Oh, no.
Very first year we're friends together. It's college. And I'm not a great student my freshman year of college. I'm a much better student now in grad school. And she finds out that sometimes I would sleep through my 8 a.m. class. And she goes, oh, Grant, you skip class sometimes? Oh, you just never struck me as the kind of guy that would do that. Devastating. Airstrikes, bomb them, destruction, complete gutting of my own internal soul. Lydia being like,
I just don't agree with that.
Me. Right, you know me now. You know me now. You know, it was like that thing where it's like, oh, I can tell you're a former gifted and talented student. I feel like I give off the vibes of like, oh, I can tell you're a former vice president of your class.
Yes. That is so accurate.
Just like a kind of deeply, deeply held bridesmaid syndrome.
Always the bridesmaid.
Exactly.
Never the bride.
Without the 27 dresses either.
It's more like
Catherine
always the
Heigl.
officiant, never the bride for you. Always the DJ, never the bride.
It's always the asking you for speech help and then not getting shouted out in the speech. Not the thank you.
Oh, that was fully facetious.
It's not how I heard it. So anyways, after my little coffee shop experience, I go downtown and I get my beard trimmed. Then I go to a couple of bookstores and then I go back home because I have a little Zoom call. And then I finish researching for tonight's story. But when I was downtown, I got my beard trimmed. And I have this wonderful barber that I go to at a downtown shop. He's cut my beard for like the last 1.5 years. So we're at the point now where we're familiar with each other. We can just kind of talk. We can gab. We're girls. We girl together.
Girls.
It's crazy. It's so nice just having like a queer barber in the middle of the city for my little queer self to go to. He's a conspiracy theorist. And I found that out today. I also heard a lot of stuff about P. Diddy today.
Oh no, wait, really?
Yeah, heard a lot of stuff about P. Diddy and then baby oil. And then somehow 20 minutes later, we were talking about how he just does not believe Beyonce and Jay-Z aren't evil. And I was like, this is wild to me. A lot of people are going to have a lot of reactions to what you're saying.
You just said.
But I'm telling you, this is wild. And that's why I'm not going to be seeing him for 2 more months. Welcome back.
He's also... Oh my God.
So it was wild.
You just said a lot of crazy things that have to do with both of the stories I am
that's
neck
funny.
deep in right now.
I like lit up the board for you. And it's so funny too, because it is a category of information that I not only do not know anything about, but I like, for the most part, actively avoid ever consuming media about, which is why I'm kind of excited to get like a really exhaustive debrief from a person I trust and know, and I know like isn't trying to, at the end of the day, convert me into one of them. Because I think that's the thing, too.
Convert you into conspiracy theory?
Yes, every time someone talks to me against my will about a conspiracy theory, I feel like I'm talking to an evangelicalist about Jesus again. I'm like, listen, I know some of the characters in this story, and I don't think you're representing them fully.
Oh, I didn't even tell this on the
About religious
Patreon.
trauma. Go
Yesterday
ahead.
when I came over and told you about my comment that I made on that Instagram reel. I'm gonna preface this by saying,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
love everyone, and you can have whatever religious beliefs you want. I think there are some very real life lessons in some religious texts, like Noah's Ark, like, hey, I'ma flood the world, get on this boat. And then
Did you add that to your comment today?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think I did mention it a couple times in some. Anyway, there's a Hurricane Milton just hit, which is obviously a tragedy, and then Helene had hit just
I don't
before.
think my prophet, Noah's Ark, would be all too happy to hear about what you're saying about essential oils right now. It's like, sorry, not to jump the gun, but I had to say that out of my body. I had to like release it.
I just like, I can't, and I'm sure people who are more religious than me understand better, but there was a woman who was in like I think the evacuation zone, who posted on social media a video of her anointing her house in holy oils, praying over all of the entry points of her home. And baby girl, that's witchcraft. Baby girl, that's a protection spell.
And see, here's the thing. I actually feel like, in speculating on this a little bit more, actually, I have like a very specific cutoff for me personally. Like, to anoint your home, which was built in the 90s out of drywall, directly in the path of a hurricane, and hoping that's going to protect it. For me, that math doesn't math. That doesn't. 2 + 2 = get out.
Also,
but,
there's a whole nother freaking thing in the Bible that's like, if the prophet that's screaming and crying and beating his chest, don't trust him as much as the other one.
Right, but so
It's fine. I'm fine.
But if we're on a plane,
Yeah.
and there's some turbulence.
Oh, I will be anointing the fuck out of that plane.
No, when I'm on a plane and there's turbulence and I hear someone praying behind me, I always think, nice, I lost the number, but I'm glad someone's calling him. I'm glad we got him on the line. I'm not even joking about that. You ever been on a boat that's rocking? Listen, I want Jesus to come a knocking.
Those are just such different situations, though. Like, one is like,
see us through this.
Like 3 days in advance, like, please leave. There's a good chance you don't come out of this storm. And the plane and boat are like, you are stranded in a deadly situation.
Right. We're trying.
And there was no out for you. Anyway, that's all just to say.
We haven't shared religious trauma in a while on this podcast.
Yeah, I made a silly little comment at like 1 a.m. while I was like, I like literally typed it. It was that thing that Grant did to me on the way back from Munich, where he just said, "Loved having this trip with you." Anyway, our trip just meant so much to me. Anyway,
I'm
do
so
not
grateful
disturb.
for our friendship.
Yeah.
8 hours later.
Yeah.
How fucking dare you do that to me?
It was something like that, where I just commented like, "Love a little witchcraft," or like, "Love when Christians do a little witchcraft." The way that my notifications absolutely like blew up with people being like, I came here to say this, like, this is paganism.
Right.
And then other people are like, that's not true. I'm like, okay.
We had a long conversation last night about this because it was in between, I think,
our 2 Patreon Cooking Time with Thomas. By the way, if you're interested, the first one will have aired last week.
We've launched a little cooking show on Patreon, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Dude, the stuff that we made.
It's good, right?
Really good.
I want you to know now.
Yes.
I had a this is such a funny thing to say. I had a backup pork tenderloin in the fridge in case.
That's what that was.
Yes, in case I needed more content.
Yeah.
It's not like I can just whip out another story. I really didn't know how long the dip was gonna take or anything. And pork tenderloin doesn't honestly take that long to prepare, but you can drag it a little bit. And I was like, I gotta defrost it anyways so I can cook it over this weekend for the break. So we'll just have it in the fridge as a backup pork tenderloin just in case.
I love that for you.
I love being able to say the phrase backup pork tenderloin.
That's fair.
My dad used to make a really delicious apricot glaze from some freshly grown apricots we'd get from family members. Girl, it was.
I have something for you to try. You can either try it before you do this next story or after.
I
don't know what you're looking at your phone.
I'm ready to go now. I'm looking at my notes.
Okay. I have one note, and it was literally just the thing that I wanted you to try.
This is my pre-show notes. So go give me the thing that you want to try, and I'll figure out what's the next story I want to say.
Have you ever been super frustrated? Viscerally angry where your body is where do I put all this anger? Or frustration?
It's a part of myself that I so rarely see, and it's almost always when I'm talking to an AI robot and I am trying to get to a real person to solve a real and pressing issue in my life that I cannot do through the website, and I have searched and it keeps sending me in circles, and I have on 2 different occasions shook the table I am sitting at and then walked away, and I was like, that's a dark place for us, Grant. That's a dark place for us. So yes.
So here's what you're gonna do next time you're in that situation, and don't do this in the heat of the moment, because this will help cheer you up. But in the heat of the moment, I don't know. Okay, so you're gonna take a really deep breath in, right? Deep breath out, blow it all out. Now scream.
No, because I could still scream. I'm choosing not to scream there. I could still scream.
Make a noise.
Okay, I'm going to push this away.
Yeah.
Okay, so breathe in.
Breathe out all of your air, fully depress your lungs.
You've got the music in you. Don't let go. There's always a noise in me. There's always a noise in me ready to come out.
No, there always is a noise, but it's always the most pathetic sounding thing to ever happen, especially when you're in that mood that's and it's just
Do you want to know what I do? And it's so gross because I think it's healthy. If it's not, don't let me know. But when I get into that mood, I imagine everything I want as a little pyramid inside of me. And I just start to take bricks off of it because I'm like, I don't really need this. It'll be fine. We'll solve it. Until I've gotten to a base level of things that I have right now. And then that fills me with gratitude.
I don't know if that's deeply healthy or deeply unsettling and a sign of psychopathy.
I just literally deprioritize whatever it is that I wanted internally until I get to a place where I'm grateful for what I have and I'm no longer viscerally angry.
Dear listener, it's now just you and me. Grant's not here. I think everyone would benefit from a little bullying and a little depression. I think that would do everyone a little bit of good. I'm absolutely kidding, but not really.
That's so great because it gets me to the main note that I had for today.
Perfect.
Okay, listen, y'all. This is going to be a lot of hope core for the next 2 minutes.
Oh, Jesus.
So I am sorry about that. I
actually don't need to be here for this.
Gonna get some more meat or...
I have plenty.
I do too.
Pinot Noir.
Hell yeah, brother.
Gross.
Okay, so here's the thing. I had this thought the other day when driving to work, and again, I'm so sorry, but I just think I'm so lucky that I get to work a job where a main part of my job responsibility is believing in others. I know. I apologized thrice before I said that out loud.
That's actually so fucked up of you to say. My job is remembering when people don't respond to me via email and then holding it personally until I get a response from them.
And as I'm driving to work in the morning, I'm literally being like, I think we're going to master this today. I think we're going to tackle it. And I'm excited for the activity I have planned that's going to help us learn it.
My job has increasingly made me mad at Europeans because they're really bad at responding.
You know my thoughts
when
on
we
the French
need
language.
things. It's not even the French. It's like the Germans and the Italians.
To the person who wrote to us this week from Munich, we love you. We're not talking about you.
Oh, no. It's only if you produce packaging equipment.
And so then later on at my house that day,
Yeah.
I am doing laundry and just reflecting. And I had this next thought, and I know it's not revolutionary, but it's like truly the idea of being at 100% is a myth. Because here's my proof. Me, Exhibit A. On the way to work that morning, I was like, I'm so lucky that my job that I do Monday through Friday is just holding out hope for young people. And I haven't put laundry away in 2 months. It's like I am literally NBA All-Star team, top of my game in a lot of areas. And I have yet to pull out a pair of socks this quarter that was not just in a clean pile of socks on my floor.
You know what's really fucked up that you just said? Thanks for asking. Sometimes I have like a good 5 days where I'm really bad at responding and I'm really bad at like taking care of myself. And unfortunately, most recently, that 5 days happened when King Soopers had my antidepressant prescription ready. And then they were like, today is your last day to pick it up. And then I didn't pick it up because I got depressed. And now I don't have that antidepressant, one of 2 that I'm on. So like you win some, you lose some. But now I can't fill it for some reason.
Okay, so did not know that before I started the story.
It's really great. I love that Grant's so hopeful and positive.
No, but that last story was like, even when I'm hopeful and positive, like there's piles of clean laundry on the floor and like dishes are in the sink. And I'm always forgetting something at the grocery store. That like, it's just like maintaining life is so hard.
I want to relate to you so bad. Sometimes I don't maintain my life and then it fucks me over for the next month.
Yeah. Or life just fucks you over and doesn't give you Adderall when you like desperately need it.
This one isn't even Adderall. This is just the anti-sads.
The anti-sads.
There's a TikTok, or no, it's like a meme that I saw forever ago that's like, I'm tired of saying I'm struggling with depression. I am now going to be saying depression is struggling with me.
And it is.
I'm winning.
Yeah.
I'm still here, aren't I? My other favorite, like turn of phrase that people have like flipped the script on is instead of saying, I don't think I'm having kids, is this line dies with me.
Have you heard of ominous optimism?
No, but I love that.
It's going to go well. It has to.
Oh, no, I would get into an executive dysfunction immediately. I would not emerge for the next 3 weeks.
As a person who screenshots and then sends those messages to you, I know we have a lot of listeners whose lived experience is far more yours than mine. And I came in today being like,
Let's be clear, you are the minority in this situation.
That's what I just said. I'm aware of that. And just kind of wanted to share that.
That's so great. Do you feel seen? I hope you feel seen.
I was trying to
just
be like,
not by me.
I was trying to be like, even the golden retriever you tune into every Wednesday has like never put away his laundry. And that doesn't mean you're like failing or struggling. It like life's just hard. That's ultimately the chord I was trying to go for.
You should really be saying all that to Mo because she is the most toxically happy little bitch.
She really is.
She's, hey, how are you? How are you? Do you want to pet me?
Her body actually seems to wiggle more with only 3 legs than most dogs with 4.
It really does.
Yeah. Like one less foot on the ground, she can really get going.
I'm not sure that she has bones. Did I show you that picture of her sleeping?
Yeah, you've shown me so many pictures of her sleeping.
The one that most recent, I think I showed it while at trivia where she's upside down.
Probably.
One way or another, I would like to show the listeners.
And then
I'm showing you again.
I have one last little quip to say before we officially start today's episode.
I woke up to Mo snoring, and it was like relatively early still. I think I don't remember. Yeah, it was like 7:30, so it was like early-ish, but not super early. Anyway, I turn over because she's snoring really loud, and I'm like, "Do you mind?" And this is what she's sleeping like.
Why does she look like a rotisserie chicken?
fully upside
It's just
down.
chest cavity so
Chest
prominent.
and just the one back leg is in the air and it was twitching from time to time, which you know how you know the sleep was really good. And her
Right.
front paws are like probably over her head and
Right.
she's snoring.
Right.
And like, well, you're doing fine, I guess.
Is that why Bowser was on my podcasting chair today to get away from whatever
No, that was
was?
because someone came in to winterize the sprinklers.
Oh, cute.
And so
Nice.
I had to quarantine the dogs for a second while he walked through the house.
Okay, last story.
Yes.
And I'm going to be a smidge of a hater for a second, and you're going to love it.
Okay. I usually do, unless it's towards me
It's definitely not towards you.
or towards like aliens or ghosts. Or...
So the title of this note that I wrote in my phone today
yeah.
is titled Worst. And before I say anything else, you guys know how much I love Denver. I'm a huge Denver supporter, talk about it all the time. Couldn't imagine living anywhere else at this point. And I'm also aware that I scratch many of the Denver/Colorado stereotypes. My Subaru is literally parked outside right now.
Yeah.
So today, during my little city girl moment, when I was at the coffee shop, after being there for like an hour and a half, two people sat down at the table next to me.
No.
And then I was, kind of because of their volume,
Listening
enchanted by the details of their life that this person
I don't
was
even care if
sharing.
they're talking loud. If you're sitting next to me,
I'm
your
listening.
conversation is open for me to listen to. I am now a part of this social circle that you're in.
So, person sitting next to me, he's a climber. And at first I'm like, I don't mean social climber, I mean a literal rock climber.
Yeah.
People on the coast, you might not understand.
I forgot that some people
Are
don't know
social
that.
climbers, right? The climbers are just, and here's the thing: if you're like, what? No, those sinewy guys and girls, those gals, they're always so hot.
Are you
no,
talking to Tyler?
Yeah.
'Cause-
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. If you're like, climbers are hot. Oh God, I don't even know where to start.
Sometimes they are if they shower.
Second, polyamorous relationship and has main partner and then additional partners. And again, nothing wrong with any of these individual characteristics,
yeah.
but it's kind of like all getting thrown into the same pot, and that pot is screaming at me as I'm trying to listen to the Japanese house and do some research on this story. Professional DJ.
Yeah. that is the menver that we're talking about.
And on the side, works for a tech company trying to build AI software.
Oh, you hate him.
I do, because you know my thoughts on AI.
I know.
So I hate him. And I'm like, at first I was like, what a stereotype. And now I'm like, you're the worst person in this coffee shop.
What kind of AI, though?
I don't.
Did you get those details?
Well, he got fired from the job, so currently no AI. But that's the field he's
not
trying
good.
to get back into.
If it's like medical AI, I'm in. If it's any like customer service AI
Right.
or like not science related, I'm
Right.
not interested. If it's making art, especially, fuck you.
He showed up late, so this like very cool
Immediately
indie girl
no.
was like basically alone for
The
25
girls
minutes.
in Denver do not deserve the men in Denver.
No. He then asked her a bunch of questions about how she advertises herself on social media because she's a creative of some kind. And then at least 3 different times I heard him use the phrase back in Brooklyn. And I was like, I love the city. And I know there's elements of the city that I love because creatives like you
Are
moved
here,
here.
yeah.
But I think I would struggle to maintain a friendship with this person. And I'm fascinated by them.
It's like a train crash. You can't exactly look away from.
And the thing is, like, I am always trying to, like, find the good, center myself, and, like, gratitude, be a kinder person, right?
Sure.
Move through the world with an energy, right? But part of me is also, like, you're outsourcing creative jobs. You're a house DJ at 5 p.m. You almost stood your friend up. You ask a bunch of, like, I just, you know?
He probably gives unwanted beta to any female climbers. That's the vibe I'm getting from him.
I don't know. I mean, he has a couple partners, so clearly he does well, you know?
That's far. I did forget about the polygamy of it all.
Honestly, there's so many aspects of him.
Like certain aspects I really hate, and other aspects I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
Again, because it's Denver.
It gives me like finance bro vibes, and then you mention polygamy, and then I'm reinterested.
Right. You son of a bitch.
I'm in.
Nice.
For those who don't know, when I said beta in the climbing world, that is advice. Like if you're like on the climbing wall and then there's someone on the ground that's like, well, you should move your left foot up here. That's considered beta. And a lot of times it's unwanted beta. Because
I did not know that. I thought you were just saying like alpha versus beta. And I was like, I mean, weird, but I guess like take back the word.
No, I'm not actually sure where it comes from. All I know is that there's so many times that I got unwanted beta climbing at the mines gym that eventually I figured out what it was.
Nice. Good. Good. Okay, so we're going to transition to the story now. Wow, what a perfect segue. Listener.
Boo.
Okay, good, because there's just the smallest amount of hate going your way. I said to Maya,
what?
I'm afraid you know the story I'm doing tonight. And you said, text me, but I'm bad with names, so like text me a name and like a clue. And so I did. And then I got ghosted in our individual chat as I watched Maya light up the board in all of the group chats that we were in. And I did that stupid hopeful thing that I'll do sometimes where I'm like, she'll get back to me. And then she didn't.
It's because we were trying to plan something in that group chat, and if I didn't step up to the plate, no one was, and then it just proceeded to get more and more frustrating trying to plan it, and so I just kind of stopped. And then I was also actively working, and so I stopped checking anything else. Your message must have gotten hidden
Pumped down.
in all of them, and I didn't see
yeah.
it. And then I went to a workout.
So if you know this story, you had a chance to let me know.
I did read the names and thing, and it didn't ring any immediate bells.
Cool.
So I'm
cool. So it is a true crime episode.
God, I love you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do after the reality winner episode?
Mm-hmm.
And it
More
goes,
true crime.
I mean, I'm like,
we're going to be in a true crime kick now for the next
for a couple episodes.
3 episodes.
Because I know
at least
what you're
after
doing.
this.
Yeah. Because this is my theme. And then you're right. Because you told,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that was awful on the ear and I'm sorry. But yes. Good. Because the theme of this next 3 episodes is dark secrets.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the episode. You ready?
Yeah.
Cool. On the afternoon of November 24th, 1971.
Okay.
So we're 1971.
Okay.
A nondescript man named Dan Cooper approached the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland, Oregon. He used cash to buy a one-way ticket on flight number 305, bound for Seattle, Washington. He ordered a drink, bourbon and soda, while the flight was waiting to take off. Also, apparently, he smoked a cigarette because this is the 70s.
Yeah, and you can do that.
And the 70s is a wild time. So it's 1971. Guess how much his ticket was Portland to Seattle?
Freaking think about it.
And you know,
like
it's just
$20. Like
literally $20. Literally $20.
I met my neighbor across the street who told me he's been living in that house for 40 years and that he bought it for $20,000. And I was like, that's fine, John. Thanks. And his name is John, but no one's gonna
be able to find that.
It doesn't matter or anything. But I was like,
he bought it.
It's like literally fuck
It's
you.
that joke where he was like, oh yeah, I found a blueberry patch here and then I just harvested them. And then the bank was like, it's yours now.
Like, and he was like, but you have to remember back in the day, like we were only making like $5. And I was like, that's basically still minimum wage, John.
Yeah. Like the crazy thing is I was making 30 years after you bought this house.
It's fine, I'm fine.
I've had the same conversation with that around student loans. He was like, well, Grant, I worked during the summer and that's, I worked basically the entire time and that's how I paid off my student loans. And I go, I could work at my full-time salary job right now over the summer and not make enough money to pay off my
really
student
need
loans.
Adults to stop talking about their financial
Right,
situation with us.
100%.
We can talk about the financial situation now, and that's all I care about. I just signed away the next 30 years of my life.
Listen, marriage isn't all that bad. Eventually, that joke will stop being so funny, but the fact that you got married and mortgaged in the same month, it's too good.
It's crazy. I love it.
Okay, so back to 1971. Yeah. So he's on this $20 flight, and it's not even like Spirit or anything.
Yeah.
Like Northwest Orient Airlines seems like a legitimate airline. Smoking a cigarette, again, wild time. The plane is pretty empty. It's only a third full, so he sits in the very back row. A short time after 3 p.m., as the plane begins to taxi down the runway, Dan Cooper handed flight attendant Florence Schaffner a note. She turned to walk away, but Cooper leaned towards her and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb."
Good.
We're doing a hijacking episode.
This is just another fear of mine.
Say more, because I'm about to say a lot about hijacking.
The thing I don't like about the deep ocean is the weird creatures and the feeling of helplessness up there,
Good.
which is not unlike in an airplane. You're in a small pressurized container with a bunch of people you don't know, and if something goes wron, you're dead.
Correct.
Like, there's like few chances in which you could survive, but
Right. I mean, it's not fine, but it's fine.
It's fine. I'm fine usually on airplanes because I just disassociate and start like, it's just a lot of phone time. I'm an iPad child. It's just phone time, free phone time where I'm actually encouraged to not do anything. But if I start thinking about it too hard, ooh, baby.
Have you seen that Kamala Harris video yet where she goes, "I have a Glock"?
Yes, now I have after my phone listened
I
last night.
I was like, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Have you seen the one that I just saw today where I think it was like Trump saying something like Kamala Harris, like, no, it was, what was the press secretary? Sarah, not
Huckabee Sanders,
yeah, Sarah,
current governor of Arkansas.
Yeah, the one, she said something like, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything isn't humble. Nothing's making her humble
She
anymore.
doesn't have children to keep her humble like I do.
And her response was, I am not striving to be humble.
Right. I think there's a lot of women who
Fucking
aren't trying
amazing.
to be humble.
Especially
because they have
by
two
your
kids.
children.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And the part beforehand, she goes, "Well, I have two wonderful children." Names her stepchildren's name. She goes, "And they call me mom. And I'm not looking to be humbled because of my children." And I don't think there's a lot of women out there. Yeah, it's so powerful.
I saw it as part of an advertisement for a sweatshirt that just says, "I'm not striving to be humble." And I was like, I want that sweatshirt.
We work hard, but the Alibaba drop shipping website works harder.
It really does. It really does. I'm like, how quickly can I get that on my body?
Listen, hold on to it, because when the world finally ends because of climate change fueled by American consumption, we're going to need it for the warmth, baby.
Of just printing it out and putting it right here. Just so that next time men yell at me on TikTok to shut up.
I'm currently cheering for nuclear winter just because I'm already such a warm-bodied person, but like, I'm down either way.
I just want it to be real cold.
Like all the time or during climate change?
Yeah, sure.
So hijacking in the 70s.
Yes.
The golden era of plane hijacking.
That's a wild sentence that you just said.
So the first question I'm going to ask you is, when do you think the first plane hijacking occurred?
I would need to know more information about when planes started being
I'm just going to go ahead
thing.
and say like early 1900s. People in North Carolina, I'm sure you're like screaming, "I'm sorry, I haven't seen your bumper stickers." Kitty Hawk is in North Carolina.
Just such a specific reference. 50s?
Okay. Honest guess. Love it.
Yeah.
Wrong, but that's okay.
Is it earlier?
Yes. The first plane hijacking happened in 1931
Jesus.
in Peru. Revolutionaries approached the grounded plane of pilot Byron Richards and demanded that he fly them over Lima so they could drop, guess?
Biowarfare or bombs?
Leaflets.
The second. Why?
They're like, "Our opinions are so revolutionary, we have to get people reading this."
That's
You there
wild.
with a plane.
Especially because planes were probably flying like this high off the ground. Yeah.
Like the entire time. Raspberries. Just like.
Disgusting.
Okay, hold on. You know Carol Channing, who says raspberries in that video?
Sure.
Okay, no, you need to have that before I can continue.
I don't think so.
Then I'm not going to continue.
Well, now someone
guys,
out the
I'm
I was
gonna
gonna say
tell
you have to keep telling the story. We're
Just
gonna get yelled
pivoting
at
in my chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
So when Carol Channing yelled that, she misread the script. And when it said raspberries, the script wanted to, weird ASMR moment coming, the script wanted her to
Blow
do
a
this.
raspberry.
Right? Or like,
Yeah.
but she didn't understand that. So she just said the word raspberries, very excited. And so the first one
really
is
funny.
she's popping out of a plane, like catching up to these dudes with like a bottle of champagne and a glass. And she just goes, raspberries. And then later on in the movie, they shoot her out of a cannon, and she then just goes, raspberries. And it's so cute and funny.
That's a Lydia moment for sure.
Oh, 110%.
Yeah.
And shout out to the director who kept it in.
I mean, that's beautiful. I love those kinds of moments that you find out way later are like improv.
Right. So these Peruvian not refugees, revolutionaries.
That changes the whole
these Peruvian
dichotomy.
revolutionaries were like, fly us over Lima so we can drop newspapers. And he is like, the pilot is like, no. And it leads to a 10-day armed standoff. Imagine being so mad about the idea of having to run a paper route. You're like, I would rather die.
I don't know. Lydia and I have the same like kind of hot mailman now, so
They rotate
can't take
him
that
out.
job for him.
You should know
I
they
know there's
rotate him
only
out
like
sometimes.
2
Right.
that I've seen, but there is one.
It's not worth leaving your mortgage marriage over, okay? Don't forget that.
Mortgage marriage.
30-year commitment to something. We'll figure it out on year 29.
I'll be so old by then with no prospects. Probably not much money.
Literally not even retirement age.
I know, that's so sad.
Yeah, I know. I'm, on the other hand, like kind of like fourth quarter, gotta kind of start locking in some of these decisions. Okay, so in the 1960s, 30 years after those Peruvian revolutionaries, in the 1960s, you could breeze. Good, I wrote down breezer. Good. You could breeze your way through the airport and onto a plane.
Oh, that's still crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, in some instances, you could buy your plane ticket on the plane like it's a bus or a train. Just grab an open seat. We'll get you a vodka and a cigarette.
Did you
and
ever
a gun?
fly before 9/11?
No, the first time I ever flew was 3 weeks after 9/11.
Right, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, like, the only experience I have with pre 9/11 airline flights is like watching Friends or like Seinfeld or something like
Right.
that. And every time I'm like, he can't meet her at the gate.
Right.
That's illegal.
Right. The plane I was on those early flights did still have ashtrays in them.
Yes, I do remember
They had
that.
cleaned them out, but they were still there. My thing that I remember first time flying ever, my parents looking at each other in like the minivan in our garage before we pulled out. And they were like, these are the plane tickets. Those are the plane tickets. I have 5 there. You have 5. Like they are like.
Yeah, because you have to like print them out
Right,
or like, yeah.
it's like if you don't have the ticket, like you're just not
done.
getting on.
Yeah.
Right? So they were like, we're good to go. Back to the story.
I think I was flying to Japan around that time that you were. Well, definitely, probably before that. I might have flown before 9/11.
Did you fly in the 90s?
Because I was born in 98 and I know that I went to Japan as a baby. So I might have actually been on a plane.
First
prior.
memory goes to me, though. It's a competition always.
I'm going to put an ad out in a newspaper for a gay, bald, funny man for my podcast.
You're going to get the guy that sings, I just want to be part of your symphony in the parking lot, apparently.
It'll be a fun one-off
Apparently
episode
he
before I
is my
invite you back on.
Okay, so this is still the age where people would get dressed in suits and ties. All that classy, unguarded way of travel was a huge opportunity for criminals.
Good.
Between 1967 and 1972, there were more than 300 hijackings worldwide.
It's kind of crazy that we had airlines and no one was like, let's make this more secure.
Well, I mean, so you're going to love this next section.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of funny bits in it.
Okay.
Over 300 hijackings worldwide. Of those 300, at least 130 of them were based in the United States. I saw a number as high as 150. I went with the more conservative number.
Oh my God.
Yet, this is the kind of trauma that... this isn't the traumatic event that we now see it in a post 9/11 world. In the 60s and 70s, it was honestly more like a silly little train heist, you know, kind of more like someone dining and dashing.
Someone holds up a bar that you're at or something.
Right. So most U.S. hijack. Well, okay. So yes, but it also kind of ended up being a free vacation because in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Over 2/3 of U.S. hijackers had the same airport as their destination. Do you want to take a guess as to what airport U.S. hijackers in the late 60s and early 70s wanted to be flown to?
Either California or New York.
No.
No?
International. I'll give you one more guess.
International. Japan?
Havana, Cuba.
Oh, okay. That
It
makes
was
sense.
a political statement around the U.S. embargo, and you couldn't get to Cuba. So if you were supportive of the regime or whatever,
Gotcha.
the only way to get there
Was to hijack a plane. That's insane.
One person hijacked a plane with a can of shaving cream that he then wrapped in like a bandana and held it up and said, "This is a grenade, and I have hijacked the plane. We need to go to Havana, Cuba."
This is the nice thing about our media these days is that there's so many people nowadays that would be like, no, I've actually watched a lot of documentaries on how grenades are made, and that's not a grenade. If I were to speculate, that's an aerosol can wrapped in something.
I'm so excited to this next part.
Okay.
Time magazine published an article in 1968 titled, "Travel, What to Do When the Hijacker Comes."
What?
This is a real article. I first heard it sourced in one of the podcasts that I listened to, so I tracked it down because it was so ridiculous, and the link is available on the notes. Real article, published by Time, hosted still on Time Magazine's website. I'm going to read
Good God.
bits of it,
Yeah.
and you let me know if you think this is a great media literacy moment. Why am I always teaching? Where you let me know what you
Kick
think
me out.
the tone of the article is. I'll begin.
Okay.
They were headed for Miami or San Juan or Houston, but a funny thing happened. Over the past 11 months, more than 1,000 Americans have visited Cuba unexpectedly. Their airplanes were hijacked. In all, 17 U.S. planes have been diverted to Cuba since January, and a record of sorts was set last week when 3 jets carrying 238 people made forced landings in Havana within 8 days. So far, nobody has been hurt, mainly because airline crews are carefully briefed for such an emergency. Pilots carry maps of Havana's Jose Marti Airport just in case.
That's insane.
And stewardesses are instructed not to argue with would-be hijackers, simply to obey their orders. But nobody has yet thought to brief the poor passengers.
So Time Magazine was like,
100%.
it is now our job.
This is like a BuzzFeed listicle, but for
I
1968.
was literally going to say it's already giving BuzzFeed listicle before you even started reading.
They give us 4 don'ts and 2 do's. So it's like
for
10
fuck's
things to
sake.
do in Havana, Cuba when your plane is unexpectedly hijacked.
Where's the quiz that's like, which traveler are you once you accidentally get to Cuba?
Hey guys, follow me for more insider travel tips on how to get a free trip to Cuba. I have a gun.
Just a GoPro. There's a
Crazy thing is-
satire out there somewhere.
Crazy thing is, you can still get to Cuba for free that way. Obviously, we're not encouraging hijacking.
No. God, no. Especially if I'm on the plane, please don't. I don't like the heat anyway.
The following orders might well be added to the important information cards commonly stuffed in the seat pockets of airlines.
Oh, God.
Don't panic. I'm now just choosing some of the best bits, but it's a full article.
Oh, God.
Don't panic. Hijackers, although unwelcome, can be congenial. One of the 3 men who took over Pan America's San Juan bound flight 281 in November, identified only as Jose, passed out 32 caliber bullets as souvenirs and chatted amicably
Shut
with passengers.
the fuck up. Where are those bullets and how much are they on eBay?
I will have my gay little Atlantis McDonald's crystal
I will have
a gun.
From a heist. What?
If I thought there was an avenue to make this article the whole story, I would have pursued it. I want you to know that.
That's insane.
Gonna keep going. It gets better. As souvenirs and chatted amicably with passengers, including Joseph Hunvel and his wife, not named because it's 1968, of course.
It's just Mrs. whatever his first and last name
No,
are.
it's just literally his wife. They
No,
didn't even
but
give
that's
Mrs.
her name.
Yes,
Just,
his wife.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus.
They're a honeymooning couple from New Jersey. And this is now a quote from, obviously, Mr. Honeyville.
Yeah.
He said he was very sorry to inconvenience us. Cubans really are very friendly people.
What?
Like, I believe that, but that's an insane thing to say on your honeymoon flight that got hijacked to Cuba.
Do we know that the hijacker was Cuban?
I'm actually now really sad I didn't include even more bits of this article.
What?
But there did get a moment where I was like, I just can't read this full article on the podcast.
I'm actually pretty sure you could.
Okay, I'm going to say the end, and then I'm going to get to the end, and then I'm going to fill in some stuff that I remember from the article.
Oh my God.
If you require assistance, if you require assistance or must go to the laboratory, raise your hand. Captors permitting, there will be normal beverage service aboard the plane.
What the fuck?
In fact, abnormal beverage service may be provided. Aboard East.
What?
Aboard
What
East,
do you mean abnormal?
It's like you were on the couch this morning with me. Because, yeah, you get it, girl. Aboard Eastern Flight 73, hijacked also in November. On its way from Chicago to Miami, the hijacker himself bought drinks for all passengers who desired them.
Oh, that's nice of him.
Want to guess how much it cost to buy an entire plane drinks in
Free
1968?
for him because he had a bomb.
I actually do think he ended up paying with cash because he was going.
Get the fuck
He was going to
out.
Cuba. What did he need American cash for? So what do you think it cost to buy an entire
Like
plane?
$5.
Literally $20 again. Literally $20 again. On the ground,
so
two
mad.
do's. Do relax. The Castro regime notwithstanding, most Cubans are friendly.
No, you can't fucking start a sentence. The Castro regime notwithstanding. What?
You know, the like armed communist revolution that took over the country like less than a decade ago.
Like, don't think about the violent people, but the non-violent people are really non-violent.
You know that regime that almost ended the world in the Cuban Missile Crisis 3 years ago? They're not fun. But the average Joe in Cuba is. Something I believe, but a crazy thing to
average
say.
person is usually pretty okay. What?
So when you are in Havana, Cuba, this is from the article, not written down. This is like now one of the little things they got to fill in. They go, they're gonna detain you just for a quick bout of questioning, and the questioning is like your name, and then they take a photo of you, and then they ask, hey, when was the last time you got a smallpox vaccine? And if you're not carrying your international vaccination card with you, you just get a quick inoculation.
And then what?
You'll get picked up by your airline the next day.
You only, after all of that, you only get 1 day in Cuba?
And a free vaccine. Because Cuba's communist.
Literally what?
Most Cubans are friendly, and they will make your layover as comfortable as possible. Okay, so then the article wrapped up
Most
suggesting
Cubans are friendly.
you buy Cuban rum and cigars.
They're like, and don't forget about duty free.
No, they're like, legitimately, they're like, you can buy a fifth of rum for $1 downtown, and you can buy Cubans for, however much price here. And they go, technically.
Cuban cigars.
Yes. Oh, yep, great. Not living Cubans.
It was like,
The Cuban cigars.
whoa.
And they're like, technically, customs could seize them upon your arrival back in the United States. But the Houston
that
flight was
point-
able to walk straight on through with them. Written in ink.
There's
in Times
like no
Magazine.
security. Who's stopping you?
So no, it's like once your rescue plane takes off, it is going to land in an American airport.
I know.
And you do have to technically go through customs in that
That
world.
customs still existed before TSA did.
Hold on one second. If you're lucky, they'll put you up in a hotel with a nightclub and communist Eastern European tourists who will be shocked to see you.
The Germans are like, what are you doing here?
Correct. There's actually two different hotels you could stay at. So there's the Habana Libre, which is the former Hilton Havana, which is downtown. And that was the one that you wanted to get put at if you wanted to do some shopping. Because, and I quote, you can find some fine Eastern European cameras and beautifully embroidered Czech peasant blouses because all of their tourists are from communist Eastern Europe in the 1960s.
Freaking wild.
But if you're staying at the other one, which is closer to their airport, that's the one that has still a nightclub scene, kind of. And there'll be can dancers and, again, shocked
what was it
Eastern
called?
European tourists. It's like Hotel Verdanda or something like that, the name of the beach close to it.
Wild.
And then it sums up its last paragraph. It says, bring a swimsuit. Verdado Beach is gorgeous. And then they were like, and the people who were on that Chicago flight were treated to a literal beach party where they were served an appetizer, roast beef, salad, dessert, drinks, and 2 different Cuban bands played bossa nova all night as they danced on the beach.
One time when I was trying to get home from Paris, I don't actually remember if I've told this story on the podcast or not. I had a layover in Munich because there's a direct flight from Munich to Denver. And so I had to fly from Paris, Charles de Gaulle, or whatever that airport is, to Munich, and then from Munich to Denver. Taking off from Paris, I was super hungover and super tired because I had been out with like these people that I met at the hostel super late the night before. And so I basically sat down in my seat, and it was only going to be like a couple hour flight. And so I just like immediately passed out in like my little aisle seat, which is how you know I didn't care, because it was an aisle seat. And I only like a window seat.
Seats.
I know, I like a window seat though. And basically at some point I wake up to what feels like the plane landing. And so I'm like, oh, that was crazy. Like, I slept through the entire flight.
Oh, no.
No, we took off, hit a bird, and then had to slam on the brakes. And then we're grounded.
And that was your experience with communism? Like, what's the link here? I'm sorry.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
And then I was grounded at Charles de Gaulle for like 3 hours while they had to re-inspect the plane and everything.
Bring a swimsuit. Ran over. Birds are gorgeous.
And then I made it to Munich, and basically the entire flight missed whatever connecting flight they had. So we all had to sit in Lufthansa Airways like line for customer service, and then they just sent us out. They're like, yeah, so we'll rebook you tomorrow. Also, we can't give you any of your luggage that you had checked. It's just going to get put back on the plane tomorrow. So I was stuck with like my one
Go be feral.
carry-on that had basically, because I ended up having to check a bag that I wasn't expecting to check, and so I literally had just my backpack which had like my camera and laptop and like nothing else. And then they gave me like these, not even like money, they just gave me coupons that were like, here's your coupon for the taxi to get to the hotel. Here's the coupon you give the hotel. And here's the coupon you give the taxi on the way back from the hotel. And here's the time of your flight. And basically, I wish I landed in Havana, Cuba, and got a free beach party, because that night sucked in Munich.
And they're having a great time in Havana. Here's the thing. Literally so many planes land in Havana, get like hijacked and detoured to Havana during this time, that the FBI, for a little bit, seriously considered building a fake airport outside of Miami that looks like Havana's airport.
So that hijackers would just
land,
be like,
and then they'd get off, and then they'd be arrested, or like, sniper
so
bullet,
what
whatever.
happens with these hijackers when they land in Cuba?
So it's actually so inconvenient for the airlines.
Yeah.
This comes from the Times article too. The plane lands in Havana, Cuba, and then the Cuban government won't allow jets to take off, because this is the Cuban government being like, that jet is mine now. So they would then send the airline. So then the airline would have to send a propeller plane, and it usually like takes a day to like organize all of that, and then they pick you up.
That's so not only that, but like all of the American airlines are losing jets.
The whole jets.
Yeah, the entire plane.
That might not have been entirely true. It might have been just what was happening in that moment or whatever, right? But yeah, they're just basically like the Cuban fleet of jet passenger planes.
I want to know what stewardess got redirected to Cuba the most. You know?
Oh, there's definitely an unseekable Molly Brown.
Yeah.
Who's like, again,
Jesus.
I'm going to have to see Julio again.
Yeah.
And I promised myself I wouldn't anymore.
We all know that relationship is incredibly unhealthy.
I promised myself I would do better.
But he's going to rope me in with all of his charisma, and he says all those nice things. And
back to that flight in Portland, Dan Cooper and that trapped flight attendant, the one that has a bomb. I actually was really proud of that transition when I wrote it in my notes. Okay, so Florence Schaffner opens the note, and the note reads, "Miss, I have a bomb here, and I would like you to sit next to me." They are taking off. They are taxiing down the runway.
In Seattle?
Portland. They're headed to Seattle.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And instead of sitting where the flight attendants are supposed to sit when takeoff happens.
Yeah, backseat.
Right. She instead buckles herself in next to Dan Cooper for takeoff. The stunt stewardess did as she was told, opening up a cheap attaché case. When they wrote that, I was like, okay, but I'm definitely using it. But okay, briefcase. Dan Cooper showed her a glimpse of a mass of wires and red-colored sticks that looked like dynamite, and demanded that she write down what he told her.
Where's the Unabomber in this? He could have fact-checked that.
In about 4 paragraphs.
Shut the fuck up.
I mean, we're going to get to it. There's a...
Shut the fuck.
There is a time I do say the word Unabomber, and we do make a
Wild.
reference to that episode.
Wild.
I'm a big fan of our podcast. I don't know if you know that.
Me too.
Okay, so he has her write down her demands. Soon, she is walking up to the cockpit with a new note for the captain of the plane that demanded 4 parachutes, that the plane be refueled when it landed in Seattle, and $200,000 in $20 bills. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $1.5 million today.
Oh my God.
The flight to Seattle takes about 35 minutes. So
The poor people at the police
They're
station were like, oh my God.
might take a little bit longer, but it's not a long flight at all.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
So Florence Schaffner tells the cockpit what's going on. And they're like, okay. And so they radio
They're like, you got that right?
Right.
Okay.
And so they radio the FAA or like whatever agency is in charge at the time. And the agency goes, okay. So here's what we're going to do.
Send you to Cuba.
You're good.
He's out of our jurisdiction then.
You're closer than you think you should. You're very good at some of this stuff.
Thank you.
They go, interesting stuff, really compelling. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to keep flying to Seattle, and we're going to call the police.
Thank you for letting us know.
And they're like, no,
know what
we'll
to do with
call
this."
you back when we have
That
a
is
plan.
The most
1970s thing you've ever heard.
The most 1970s, and also the poor pilots are just sitting there like trembling.
Right.
Like,
right. And so they're flying. The FBI gets informed, and they have to now kind of scramble to get everything together. I want to make sure I don't skip anything in my notes. Okay, so getting the parachutes actually wasn't that hard. But then Dan Cooper finds out that it's for Air Force parachutes, and he goes, no, they need to be skydiving parachutes. There's a difference. We'll cover it later on in the episode. He's like,
just feels like you get one. You actually weren't specific enough in your ask, so this is actually on you.
they gave him an update, and he was like, that's not going to work for me.
That's ridiculous.
And I have a gun. No, but this time it's a bomb. This time it's a bomb.
I have sticks and wires. That's where I'm at. I don't actually think it's a bomb. We'll see.
The really crazy thing about all of this, though, is that in 1971, the FBI doesn't just have $200,000 in 20s, like hanging out at the FBI headquarters. They have to coordinate with like kind of every single bank in Seattle to get that many 20s together.
Wild.
And then also they have
Get Victor Hugo on the line. He could make at least a couple in a few.
100%.
Several
a couple
hours.
Yeah. Never as much as you paid for it.
Yeah.
Because in addition to finding that many 20s, obviously the FBI is like writing down every single serial code so they'll be able to track it
so they can track
later.
it.
Right.
Yeah. That's what they don't tell you.
Right. And so it takes them a couple of hours, which again took a second. Schaffner and the additional flight attendants, Tina Mucklow and Alice Hancock, would then be the go-between for Cooper and the pilots. At one point, the pilots apparently needed to see the original note for proof. So Tina Mucklow brings the note up to the and they're like, here it is. And they're like, great, thanks. And then she goes back. And then Dan Cooper's like, where's the note? It needs to come back. You can't hold on to it. And so they bring the note back. He's like always very kind of conscious as to what evidence he's leaving. So there's nothing, 100%.
Yeah.
So there is nothing that he has like handwritten that he's about to leave behind.
Yeah.
That comes back. And so Tina Mucklow, specifically that flight attendant, becomes the back and forth between this hijacker and the pilots in the cockpit.
Can we just rewind for a second? I kind of love the fact that this man, he handed this woman the piece of paper or something with a note on it, and then I'm assuming the flight attendant was like, anyway, thank you for your trash, and he was like, no. Ooh. I actually wrote you a really specific message.
Right.
And it's not my phone number.
So one of the podcasts pitched out originally that Florence Schaffner thought he had just given her his number because that's not the first time that happened to her. And he was like, I actually need you to read that right now. That's kind of
he
time
was like,
sensitive.
I was not expecting you to be so cavalier about this.
Like, here's the shocking thing. they don't inform any of the other passengers on board what's happening during this entire time. They keep it all very quiet.
The person is, the people on the flight are like, but I read that Time magazine article.
Correct. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to Havana.
Yeah.
So like the flight attendants still do a beverage service, for example.
Was it an abnormal one?
No one got a free drink. At one point, a lady was, or I think it was a gentleman, was bored and was like, I want a magazine. And the flight attendants were like, the magazine rack's over here. And so he went and like looked at the magazine rack. And because Dan Cooper's in the back row, it's like right behind Cooper. And so he like picks up a magazine and like goes back. And then Dan Cooper calls one of the flight attendants over and goes, if that was an air marshal, I don't want that to happen again. I don't want any more of that to happen again.
I mean, fair enough.
I know, but that's how casual everyone is about everything.
Yeah.
So eventually...
Wild that there was a magazine rack.
Yes. So eventually, after a while, the FBI finally is ready.
Yeah.
They're ready to refuel the plane. They have secured 4 skydiving parachutes, and they have $200,000 in cash, and they are ready to hand it off. They get told later that... Actually, I'm going to pause for a second. While they're in the air, obviously the other passengers are like, hey, this is a super quick flight. Why are we still circling? Why aren't we landing? And so the pilots are like, literally, don't even worry about it. It's a small mechanical issue. And we just got to burn some fuel.
Why the fuck would you say it's a mechanical issue?
They said it's a small mechanical issue.
That does not help me.
And we just have to burn some fuel before we land. So we're
See,
going to
the tower's telling us to circle.
Bit.
Our gate's not ready.
Because it's 2 hours. Apparently.
2 hours. Holy fuck.
Apparently, they get told later that they circled over the Puget Sound, like the ocean itself.
Yeah.
In case the bomb went off, it wouldn't rain debris onto the city of Seattle. That's terrifying to find out.
Yep.
So eventually, the FBI was ready, and the plane lands 2 hours after it was originally scheduled. Good luck if you had a connector.
Yeah. Yeah. You missed that baby a long time ago.
Once they were landed, there was again another announcement asking all passengers to remain seated. Flight attendant Tina Mucklow steps off the plane and into an unmarked car. There, an FBI agent hands Mucklow 4 parachutes. She brings them in, goes back down, and then a suitcase full of money. It's only then that the passengers are allowed to deplane.
Okay.
And they are deplaning directly onto the tarmac, which I don't think is all that unusual for the 1970s. But there's suddenly a lot of police officers outside.
And they're like, why?
Uh-huh. And that's when they find out they have been part of a hijacking this entire time.
That's the only way I want to be a part of a hijacking ever. I don't want to know a single thing about it while I'm in that compartmentalized, no.
And you made fun of me when I was like, I just don't want to know a lot of things anymore. I'm happy to be wrong.
I still want to know. I just don't want to know in that very specific, very potentially deadly moment.
So Cooper exchanges 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants for the money and the parachutes.
Okay.
But he demands the 2 pilots, the flight engineer, and 22-year-old flight attendant Tina Mucklow remain on the plane.
Yeah.
Now that the plane's refueled, he has a new demand. He says this: we're going to Mexico City. Or anywhere in Mexico. Nonstop, gears down, flaps up.
What?
Don't go above 10,000 feet.
Why do you know all of this information?
All cabin lights. These are great questions to ask, Maya.
Yeah.
All cabin lights out. Do not land again in the United States for fuel or any reason. No one behind the first class section. And he
Crazy that there was a first class section on a 40-minute flight.
Correct.
Nowadays we have Southwest that are like, in cattle, in, pick a seat now.
Yeah. And then it's
Take
like,
the middle one, go, sit on his lap.
And then it's someone in group 7 trying to board in group 5, and they just take him out back and execute him. Should have known. If they wanted early bird access, they should have paid $8 more.
Duh.
Life was nice 20 years ago. I want you guys to know that. He then has one final kind of crazy request. He then instructs that the plane needs to take off with the staircase in the rear still descended.
I don't like it.
He's
plane jumping off somewhere.
Was a Boeing 727, and those planes had a rear staircase that led directly to to the plane's center aisle. So this is the photo. Don't read, but you can zoom. It like literally comes down like a little tail.
Oh, I see it. Okay, it's all the way in the back. Okay.
And
it looks like a UFO's, like a staircase for a UFO would be like. Yeah.
And it's like a ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I clicked things.
It's okay. I got you.
Okay, no, I fixed it.
It's like literally a ramp, and it leads up to a door, and then that door, boom, you're just in the center aisle of the plane. And so they have a fully loaded plane full of fuel on the tarmac. All of the blinds, all the like shades have been pulled down so that way the FBI can't see into the plane. He has now money, 4 parachutes, and still has 4 hostages.
For a criminal, he's pretty smart. Usually they're pretty dumb.
He is pretty well organized.
I was worried when
You're
you said that.
such a good consumer of true crime.
Yeah.
Because there's a section about that too. Go
well,
ahead.
I was worried that he was going to try and like, once he said refuel, he was going to go somewhere that the plane physically couldn't go. Because a lot of like smaller domestic planes can't actually like, despite if you fill them up, they can't make it that far without refueling.
But there's still a problem.
Okay,
The plane is currently parked in Seattle and can't carry enough fuel to fly all the way to Mexico City.
Oh yeah, baby!
So good at this. It's like
I am a true detective.
It's like watching a children's movie with someone who understands foreshadowing and plot.
What?
You're like, I bet it's friendship that saves the day.
I haven't watched Ex Machina, but I get the principle.
That beloved parental figure is going to die, but they'll grow from the grief.
Me and Casey like to play this game and like absolutely ruin movies for each other. We're like, yeah, he's absolutely the culprit. And then like 40 minutes later, they're right, or whoever said that is right. And we're like, that was a good call. That was a good call.
Okay.
Yeah.
So usually when I'm watching movies with my parents, it's like over the holiday season and it's like how the elf baked cookies or whatever, right? Or like some raunchy Sydney Sweeney rom-com. So there's not usually a lot of suspense.
So reality winners.
It'd be probably off the table.
Yeah.
When we were on family vacation this summer for the first time, we're all gathered
Napa
in the
Valley.
living room. Yes. And we watch Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know. And I have never really seen any of it.
Why do I feel like that was your sister's choice?
Right. So do you know who else's choice it was? My like beautiful, talented, gorgeous sister-in-law, Taylor.
Seriously?
And my dad. Yes.
Didn't see any of that
Here's
coming.
the thing. Taylor once accidentally watched like an entire Mad Max trilogy on a flight to Europe and is now like deep in the universe.
Okay.
And
yeah,
so
sure.
at one point, I asked my dad, hey, what's inside the tanker they keep driving around?
Yeah.
And my dad goes, breast milk. And I go, what? And he goes, you just got to watch the movie to understand. And I like every 5 minutes I'd be like, I still don't understand. And it's so funny. Obviously, we're a little wine drunk because it's a wine vacation. Now, whenever anyone is parked behind like a tanker of any kind, they take a picture of it and send it to the
Breast
group chat. 100%. Think it's full of breast milk. Full of breast milk. Anyone thirsty for breast milk? A lot of play on that
Gross.
theme. It's really funny.
I love that.
This plane is not full of breast milk.
Well, that's a shame.
It's also not full of enough fuel to get to Mexico City.
Yeah.
Second, the plane literally can't take off with the stairs descended behind it.
Yeah.
Because it can't like angle.
It can't
at
do
all.
the takeoff thing.
So they're gonna need a compromise. So
Yeah.
Cooper and the pilot negotiate.
Yeah.
And they come up with this compromise. The stairs can come up, and then after takeoff, they have to come down.
Yeah.
And Tina Mucklow, the flight attendant's gonna stay in the cabin until they come down. Second,
All right.
they were going to stop in Reno, Nevada and Yuma, Arizona for gas before flying.
They have to make
the rest.
2 stops.
They're trying to get to Mexico City, I think.
Girl, you picked the wrong fucking plane.
No, because this one has a little tail to it, and he now has 4 parachutes with him.
Good God.
And so they agreed to that compromise.
How many people are on the plane with him?
So it was the 36 passengers.
Yes,
remember
but
it was only a
now
third
that
full.
they're going.
2 pilots,
Uh-huh.
flight engineer, flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, and then himself.
Okay, so who's staying behind?
Those 4 and him.
No, but who's staying behind because he only has 4 parachutes?
That's a great question.
Is it him?
And one that I would be really nervous about if I was one of the hijackers.
I'd be incredibly nervous as a flight engineer. Like, I really just feel like you could do this without me.
You're like, I'm not pretty like Tina, and I can't actually fly the plane. Maybe they can. I don't know what flight engineers do.
I'm assuming they know the basics, like, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I know a lot about packaging equipment. That doesn't mean I can operate it.
I don't know a lot. Like I know that. I know I don't know. I know I don't know a lot.
You couldn't record this podcast episode without me.
I can't log into any of our bank information. And not because you're hiding it from me.
I'm pretty sure I've given you the login
I'm sure.
some point.
I am actually so sure you have.
Yeah.
When I got the new phone, I found our like page full of passwords, and like 2 of them were expired, and I was like, whoop, guess I'm never getting into that account. And that's my cross-a-bear.
Yeah, that one's on you, babes.
Okay, so, I managed to log into my old Facebook, by the way, so I can start responding to those. I have to do it on like literally a laptop, though.
That's fine.
And I feel like that's a compromise I can live with.
Good.
And so with this compromise, staffed by the 4 remaining crew members, they take off for Mexico City. But he has other instructions, too. The plane needs to fly low, below 10,000 feet. And it needs to fly under 200 knots.
Okay.
That is so low and so slow.
You're getting a lot of air resistance.
Correct.
Especially with the flaps up.
Correct.
That's why
and
they have
the
to make
gear
2 stops.
down.
Yeah, okay.
Right. It's so low and so slow. The pilots actually have to like manually fly the plane.
Because the plane is like, no.
Right. It's like trying
Cruise control is like.
Yeah, it's cruise control at 18 miles per hour. The car's like, just get out and walk, you fat ass. Like, I'm not going to do that. Don't hit the kids. Like, I'm not going to.
That's my least favorite. I have adaptive cruise control in my car. And like, once again, I think it's like 15 miles per hour. It just stops working. And you really have to pay attention for that moment. Because otherwise you're just going to keep on rolling,
They're like, kill the engines.
The car's
which
like,
again is
literally
just
screw you.
Scene from the Titanic.
Fair enough.
Okay, so this little hijacked plane is now leading a little parade in the sky. Obviously, the government's not just going to let it slip away into the night. And so they do a couple of different things. They scramble 2 fighter jets from that Air Force base in Tacoma. Mm-hmm. They then also have a helicopter circling the airport that's going to follow it along that has the FBI lead like agent on it. And then they scramble a literal like military parachute plane full of parachutists because they're like
to save the one person
or whatever. I don't know. I think
they did the math and they're like, ooh.
They're like, if someone jumps, we jump, right?
Yeah.
Which again is a Titanic reference. That's not even written down. That just came naturally. Yeah. Thank you. Because that's the kind of stuff we write down usually. I'm also trying to time it out to figure out when I want to take a break to get a refresh in my drink, and I think it's coming up here in a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're leading this little parade in the sky.
Love that.
Even flying as slowly as it was, the plane outran the helicopter. The approach of storms meant that the plane full of parachutists couldn't see the rear of the plane clearly to see if anyone was jumping out or not. Inside the plane, Dan Cooper instructed Tina Mucklow to go to the cockpit. As she did, she saw Dan Cooper tying the money bag to his body from cords from one of the parachutes. He's like cutting cords off.
Oh, so now 2 people are
They're
getting
now
left
down
behind.
to 3 parachutes. They then, in the cockpit, get the warning sign that the rear stairs had been descended. And at some point between 8:10 and 8:15 p.m., the plane dips. By the time they land in Reno, Nevada, Cooper was gone. Stuck to the side. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And down below, a bear is high on cocaine.
It all comes together in the Will I Laugh universe.
This is the Will I Laugh universe. We will find a way to connect it, whether you like it or not.
We all saw that coming, right? He's off the plane.
Yeah.
I, myself, as a storyteller, didn't foresee the possibility of you thinking the 3 other parachutes were for 4 of the passengers. Yeah. That's a fantastic wrinkle. And that's what a fresh pair of eyes can do to a story.
That's why you bring the fresh blood onto the case.
That's why you bring the seasoned true crime detective who's gone rogue too many times.
I specialize only in murders.
And is
Don't
trying
bring me
to
onto
crack
this
her
airplane
biggest case yet in the next episode.
Yeah, I really am. Tune in next week. Just kidding.
No, that's so fucked up because I was about to say
Stay with us.
more on Dan Cooper in a second. Stay with us. I need to refresh in my drink.
Welcome back.
Hi. I have a little drink now. It's tea again. Kind of becoming a
Does it
theme.
taste okay?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Try
cool.
a sip.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan Cooper is not stuck to the back of a plane like a little fly.
Oh, that's nice.
A little bit of lime juice too to help cut
Ooh.
any lime juice,
I was gonna say,
chamomile
because
tea.
chamomile sometimes is a bit like herby.
Chamomile and whiskey.
Have you seen that?
That's not an OG. I'm definitely referencing something on the
Well,
internet.
there's a TikTok that someone has never heard the word chamomile
Yes.
pronounced. Yeah.
That is 100%
Okay, cool.
what I'm sourcing that from.
I can't remember how they actually pronounce it, but yeah.
Okay, so they're searching for the plane now. Obviously
In
not
Reno,
for
Nevada.
Dan Cooper. I know. Obviously not for Dan Cooper, but for like signs or whatever.
Yeah.
But Cooper left behind very little. But he did leave behind these things. He left his black clip-on tie. The parachute.
Of course, you
he
can't
cut
tie
the
a
cords off
goddamn
of.
tie.
I could also see it. Listen, I watched this one horrific work safety video when I worked at a grocery store about how a tie could get caught in a machine and then eat your whole face.
But then just take the tie off.
Clip-on is a lot easier. So if someone like tried to grab him by it, he could
It's
like
just
yank
lazy.
away.
James Bond would never.
Right. James Bond would do almost every single thing in the story so far.
Fair point. Fair point.
So he left behind his clip-on tie. He left behind the rest of the parachute that he cut the cords away from.
Okay. So there's 2 parachutes left? Or are
correct.
there... Okay, 2. Okay.
Oh, hold on one second. There might actually be... So he used the cords for one.
So that one's done,
Right.
Yeah, and that one's
And then
left on the plane.
I think he jumped off with 2 more.
Okay,
So I think there's one cut up one and one unused one
Okay.
still on the plane.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that for a fact.
Basically, TLDR, there's not enough parachutes on the plane for the people on it.
Correct. That's why they have
Right,
landed.
Yeah.
8 cigarette butts in his seat's ashtray.
All right.
And he had taken the notes he had written with him.
Seems crazy. Also, I just love the fact that the stewardess left to go to the cockpit because she was told to, and then comes back and she's like, "Oh, thank God,
He's gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna love parts of this episode.
Okay, good.
Could Cooper have actually jumped off the back of the plane and survived? Is a question that is asked by investigators at the time.
I was like, I thought you were gonna say still asked today, and I was like, you're gonna fucking tell me.
So they're flying low enough,
Okay.
and it's cold but survivable. And Boeing comes out the next morning, and they're like, "Yeah,
He could have survived,
that's
yeah.
survivable." They immediately said that a successful parachute drop could be done from their back stairs as well. So they're like,
Okay.
he could survive a jump at that altitude and at that speed, even at those temperatures, and that you could jump off the back of our stairs and survive with a parachute on. So if he jumped, he could have survived. And based on where the plane dipped on their flight path, he probably jumped out in southern Washington, near the town of Ariel.
Southern Washington?
Part of your world.
That's really funny.
Ariel.
I love that logo.
The area around Ariel.
So he literally doesn't even make it back to Portland.
No, he does not. No, he does. Oh, no, you're right. He does not. They land
When his
in
whole
Seattle,
plan was to get the plane all the way to Mexico City.
Right.
Was it all just like...
And he's demanding Mexico City, and they have to compromise with fuel stops.
Yeah.
So the area around Ariel, the areola, if you could.
Shut the fuck up.
Again, not written, just off the
good.
top of my head in the
That was
moment.
good.
I said area around Ariel, and I was like, gotta
Areola.
finish it.
Yeah.
The areola around Ariel is exactly what you'd expect for southern Washington.
Okay.
It's crowded with trees, super dense, rural, lakes and rivers cutting through it, and smaller mountains. Say it, Bella, out loud. This is the skin of a killer. We're talking about Twilight. For those of you being like, what did they just do? Twilight.
Watch it, please. At least watch the first one. It's amazing. It'll change your life forever.
If you still can't picture the kind of area that we're talking about, you have seen essentially videos of what Ariel, Washington looks like. If you've ever seen a video of like a Bigfoot sighting, it's like the entire western coast of America.
Dyatlov
like,
Pass
yeah,
with the Yeti.
Yeah, 100%. Just dense and urban.
Yeah.
And so this is by far and away the biggest thing that's ever happened to the town of Ariel, Washington.
Do they have a shot to commemorate it?
They have something even better. I just zoomed up to the very top.
This is the second story we've done in Washington in the last bit, because Jacob's story was in Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. So they have this fun thing Ariel does, and this isn't going to spoil any part of the story,
Okay.
but it says, it's a sign that's, you see the sign?
Ariel store.
Welcome to Ariel store, home of DB Cooper Days. And then it's a
my
person
God.
parachuting in the corner. I really do want one summer for us to do a trip to like
tour.
festivals.
Yeah.
I want the Oakville Blob Fest, and I want DB Cooper Days,
I do have
and then a cheese festival in Washington.
special request.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your special request?
I don't think it's on the Pacific Northwest or anywhere near it, though.
That's okay.
I want to go to the Mothman Festival. I
Like
just think
near,
it would
like,
be
what, isn't
really
it like Ohio?
funny. Yeah, it's in the Midwest somewhere. It just sounds so fun.
Let's do it. 100%. Let's do it. Let's find an open mic night. Let's
Yeah.
you and I just kind of riff for a little
Yeah.
bit. Let's do it. Hell yeah.
Hell
right
yeah.
here on the.
That was horrible.
Right here on the pod. Okay, so Ariel local police chief Joe May then is quoted saying this in the like proceeding investigation of Dan Cooper. Quote, either he is hung up in a tree somewhere and we won't find him until next deer season,
Oh, no.
or he is home watching on his television, laughing his head off. The unfortunate
Sure.
thing is they have no idea where that home might be,
Yeah.
because Dan Cooper, or DB Cooper, as the press misheard and then printed,
Shut the fuck up.
is a made-up name.
Yeah. I mean,
Dan Cooper
obviously.
doesn't seem to really exist.
There was no security back then.
Right.
Nothing mattered.
And was that the last time we ever heard from DB Cooper?
Well, there's only been an hour and a half of this episode, so I'm going to say no.
Probably not. No,
Yeah.
yeah, probably not. What a really disappointing episode if I'm like, and that's the whole
And
story.
anyway, I know I just refilled my drink.
So the plot immediately becomes national
Thickens.
news. Also, yes. The plot immediately becomes national news. And pause for a second. Not because a plane got hijacked. That's kind of happening once a month in America right now.
Like a normal occurrence.
It's just kind of like news that they don't have him, right? Like the people that landed in like Cuba, they're like, sure. The people that land
Gotcha.
elsewhere, they
Yeah.
like immediately got him, right? But
Wait, okay, sorry. Did we ever talk about what happens to the hijackers that end up in Cuba?
they live the rest of their life in Cuba.
Oh, that's just what, like, the American government isn't like, send them back.
No, and
Like
even
the
if they did,
the Cuban
Cubans
governments are
wouldn't
all like,
do that.
no.
Cuba was like, why they gave us
They
a
actually
jet.
brought us a jet. We'll protect them with our lives.
Exactly.
Okay, fair
now they
enough.
get to enjoy the joy and riches of communism. And they will
And-
never, and nothing could go wrong.
You gonna make it?
Oh, forgot that these are connected to the table.
Yep.
I'm good now.
If your chair feels weird, I think it is because it's like farther like that way and that way. So you need to like bring it like this way and this way a little bit.
Please cut that terrible content from the episode.
Now that you asked, no.
Okay, so the press immediately takes over. They're in Reno, like when the plane lands, and they are trying to get a picture of DB Cooper. They're trying to get a hold of the flight attendants. They're trying to get information from the FBI. The FBI isn't saying anything. And then a journalist overhears an FBI agent say the name DB Cooper, or at least believes they hear the name DB Cooper. And by the next morning, the name DB Cooper is all over the press. They haven't... The FBI doesn't say, hey, his name's DB Cooper. The press runs with it, and they're like, sure. I mean, he would put the boarding pass as Dan Cooper.
You're a lot nicer to her than I am. I was like,
It's getting very distracting.
it's like if you can't get up here, I'm not helping
I
you.
said the same sentence 3 times.
Fair enough.
3 days after his jump, a letter arrives at the Reno Evening Gazette. Postmarked from what?
This feels Unabomber-y.
postmarked from Oakdale, California, and cut out of magazine letters. Bring back arts and crafts in the school. We're not producing enough ransom letters anymore.
The only reason I want magazines to continue to be printed.
I have a lot of New Yorker copies if you want one.
It's good because I have a lot of ransom notes to write to you.
Bring me more dip or the microphone gets it. So D.B. Cooper's letter to the Reno Evening Gazette reads this. Attention!
Publish my book or I will blow up another plane.
Publish another book or I'll do another death-defying stunt. Want to see me jump a shark?
Raspberries!
Raspberries! You got to say it like Carol Channing.
I don't know how she says it because I haven't seen it.
I'm going to just make you watch the scene. Okay, attention. Thanks for the hospitality. I was in a rut. D.B. Cooper.
Shut up. There's no way it was actually him.
No, the FBI is almost immediately like, that's not D.B. Cooper.
That seems like something a high school student would then create in their arts and crafts
no
class.
Small part because D.B. Cooper never makes it to Reno.
Yeah.
He jumps out in southern Washington.
That's actually the most insane part of that.
A few days later, another letter arrives. This one at the Portland Oregonian. That's the name of the magazine, the newspaper.
Badass name.
The Oregonian out of Portland. This one cut out from letters from a Playboy magazine. And somebody was like, "Oh, this is from a Playboy magazine. How can you tell? Don't ask." That's how
the wife was like, "Yeah, how do you know?"
Right, 100%. Just some sad guy. Rogue agent, doesn't have time for love. This crime to solve. Here's what the letter to the Oregonian says.
Okay.
I'm alive and well in hometown, P.O., Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
I'm alive and well in hometown, P.O., the system that beat the system, D.B. Cooper.
That sounds more Unabomber.
Mm-hmm. Several other letters are also mailed to newspapers across the country that the FBI quickly rules out as fake. But one letter, sent to 4 newspapers, the Seattle Times, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and the Washington Post, was only released after journalists filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the FBI.
Okay.
Here is now that letter.
Oh.
Sirs, I knew from the start that I wouldn't be caught. I didn't rob Northwest Orient because I thought it would be romantic, heroic, or I almost said heroic. And I was like, no. Heroic. No.
I will not have an aristocratic.
Philosophical.
No, I'm too scared to say it.
Because I thought it would be romantic, heroic, or any other euphemisms that seem to attach the situations of high risk. I'm no modern-day Robin Hood. Unfortunately, I do only have 14 months to live. My life has been one of hate, turmoil, hunger, and more hate. This seemed to be the fastest and most profitable way to gain a few fast grains of peace of mind. I don't blame...
$1 million. Just a small loan.
1.5.
Yeah. It's an insane amount of money if you have how many more years to live?
I'm Donald Trump, and I started off my business with a small loan of my entire dad's real estate empire that I then bankrupted.
And then became president. For no reason.
No one's ever jumped out of a plane better. No one's ever done more magnificent stunts in the air, in the dark, freezing rain than I did.
And they don't tell you about the flips that I did.
And Southern Washington failed by corrupt Democrats in Seattle, which is not the capital of Washington, just cannot serve.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
That was really good.
I spent a lot of times around kids who intentionally try to figure out how they can best impersonate him.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Where was I? I was lost in that bit. I don't blame people for hating me for what I've done, nor do I blame anybody for wanting me to be caught and punished, though this can never happen.
How long does he say he has left to live?
14 months.
Yeah, 1.5 million is a lot for that amount of time.
I could do it. I could figure it out.
I'm not saying that I couldn't spend that amount of money in
First,
that amount of
put
time.
it away in a long-term, high-interest savings account.
But why long-term?
No, that's the joke, babes. I'm not saving it.
I want to buy a house.
It's in marked $20 bills.
Fair. That's super fair.
I actually really do need to get to Mexico City, though. or Cuba.
For your 40th.
Here are some. Too deep, Lord. Here are some, not all, of the things working against the authorities. I'm not a boasting man. I left no fingerprints. I wore a toupee. I wore putty makeup. They could add or subtract from the composite 100 times and not come up with an accurate description.
Tell me you're a generic
And we
white man.
both know it. I've come and gone on several airline flights already and am not holed up in some obscure backwoods town. Neither am I a psychopathic killer. As a matter of fact, I've never received a speeding ticket. Thanks for your attention.
You gave them a lot of he gave them a lot of clues.
He does give them a lot of cues.
I'm not convinced that all of them are true. Or he is doing that thing that criminals do and get overconfident and just spill all the beans, like, you're never going to catch me.
Right.
Like the Zodiac Killer,
So-
which, I mean, we did never catch him, so never mind.
So the longer this story goes on in the press, right? Like,
Yeah.
the more attention it seeks out, like the more
course.
people like offer things up, the more resources the FBI dedicates to it. And they eventually build out this like really comprehensive profile of the person that they're looking for. So we know a couple things about Dan Cooper that helped provide guidelines for the search.
Okay.
The two flight attendants with the most contact with him, Florence Schaffner and Tina Mucklow, provided almost identical descriptions of Cooper independently from each other from two different cities.
Okay.
Because when they're interviewing Florence Schaffner, she's in
still
Seattle.
and
She's on a
Tina's
plane
in
to
Reno.
Reno.
Yeah.
And then when they land, that's when they were able to like rescue her too.
Yeah.
So not at all in the same facility.
she's the one that spent the most time with him, though, so I'm
Correct.
most curious about
But
what she has to say.
Schaffner's the one that sits with him
Oh,
first.
Schaffner is, okay.
Schaffner sits with him first.
And then it's Tina.
Kind of loses her cool a little bit. That's not said specifically, but like
For
Tina
some reason,
does seem to
they need
take
to swap.
over.
Yeah.
Or maybe Dan Cooper just gravitates towards Tina Mucklow, who's 22 at the time more. But
my
like,
God.
I know. Oh,
Yeah.
there's some stuff coming. He also specifically asked for skydiving parachutes, not ones from the U.S. Air Force, suggesting that he was a former Air Force pilot to know that Air Force parachutes open up automatically on like a rigging system that you use in the plane, and that skydiving parachutes are the ones with the cords that you can then deploy yourself.
I mean, it's smart of them to offer a Air Force one then,
Right.
because the
he
chances
would die
are.
as he plummeted.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Right.
take care of one problem.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
And now you're just trying to find
a
that.
body.
Yeah, 100%. Like in a very specific area.
Yeah.
And also they're like, here are some government parachutes. And he's like, no, I want skydiving
Which means
parachutes.
but like, it's crazy the like research that he did and didn't do,
Sure.
right? Like, he picked the wrong kind of plane for what he wanted to do.
Did he pick the wrong kind of plane or the right kind of plane?
He wanted to get to Mexico City. He picked the kind of plane that could not make it there with the
But
full.
did he want to get to Mexico City? Because he also picked a plane that had stairs in the back that you could jump off of.
I'm sure that that's not the only type of plane that had those kinds
Sure,
of stairs
sure,
or
sure.
other doors he could have exited out of.
Right.
Maybe not doors that but he did research about, like, he knew what, I guess the like fact that he knows what altitude and the speed that he needs to be flying at does imply that he probably knows a lot about aircrafts, or at least has done his research in some capacity. But it's
1971. It's not like you can just go to the internet, right? Like the research that you're going to do.
You have to do it like in a library
Right,
or some
but
shit.
I think that flow of information is easier for the U.S. government to control if it's like a
track.
secret and like, yeah.
And if you bought
yeah,
a
yeah.
book, I mean,
Also, on the flight, Cooper pointed out the city of Tacoma and the nearby military base,
he
suggesting
probably
that
knows,
he
yeah.
was probably military or had a lot of military knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He also specifically instructed altitude and speed.
in the way that they would know it. It's not like miles per hour. It was
Right.
knots.
Cooper's mannerisms, such as his vocabulary, planning, his thorough retrieval of evidence, and his use of aviation terminology, led the FBI to conclude Cooper was not a common criminal. Cooper was clearly intelligent, not impulsive or easily rattled, a careful and procedure-oriented planner, adept at anticipating contingencies and adaptive strategies. Almost messed the word up. That's why I said it slow. With meticulous and methodical tendencies, profilers also noted Cooper's ability to quickly and competently adapt to various situations as they arose. That meant he also probably preferred to work independently because he got to make decisions in the moment. Because Cooper spilled the only drink he was served and never asked for another one, the FBI theorizes that Cooper was neither a heavy drinker nor an alcoholic. Also, based off of the 8 cigarettes he smoked on the flight, they also theorize he was probably a 1-pack-a-day smoker.
Yeah, 8 cigarettes is a lot for that amount of time.
100, and I get being nervous, but it's like...
That's a lot.
Keep a free hand, you know?
Yeah. I like the smell of a cigarette.
Finally, because, again, like Dan Cooper doesn't really exist. They're like, where did the name come from? They're guessing Dan Cooper pulls his alias based on the adventure hero Dan Cooper, a fictional Royal Canadian Air Force test pilot and the main character of a popular French language Belgian comic book series. One of the covers which depicts the character Dan Cooper skydiving. Because the Dan Cooper comics are never translated to English, nor are they imported to the United States, FBI profilers speculate that the hijacker encountered them during a European tour of duty, and that's why he spoke French as well. Oh. So let's go ahead and do a quick little timeline thing for a second. So it's 1971.
Right.
Okay. World War II, conflict in Europe, ends in 1945. So you're looking at 25 years after that conflict ends. Yeah. So if you're a 20, 21, 22-year-old getting shipped off to Europe during that time, and the draft caught you at 18. So if you're a 22, 23, 24-year-old who spends like 6 months in Europe or immediately afterwards as part of like peacekeeping missions and things, 25 years puts you in mid-age. And both Tina Mucklow and Florence Schaffner said he looked like a man in his early to mid-40s. Okay. So they're like, adds up. Probably a person who was drafted during the war and then might have stayed in it, but like has military experience for sure. From that. That's why he has all these languages. And so they quickly narrow in on a couple of suspects. And they have a picture of him. So this is the composite that they get from it's floating right here. This is the composite they get from the descriptions, and then this is with glasses. Goodbye. I kind of love that they were just like, then this is him with a funny hat. Yeah. Like,
the person who's like doing the drawing, they're like, and you're gonna kill me, but put glasses on.
This is him with a tan after 2 weeks in Mexico City. And this is him celebrating New Year's. I just kind of liked the idea of like him doing something special that day. You know?
That's why you and I can't be profilers.
Right. No, and that's also why I'm a great teacher. My little rat brain will just say that part out loud. And people are like, you bring history to life. I'm like, I'm easily distracted. Like you, same words, different sides of it. So, as the FBI is chasing down these leads from these letters and building out this profile for Dan Cooper, something exciting happens. Only a few months later, a near identical hijacking occurs. Okay. This time on a flight from Denver to Los Angeles. Okay. The hijacker requested cash. This time, $500,000. Oh. In their money, not in today's money.
Oh, that's
so from $200,000 to $500,000.
Jeez.
He requests $500,000 for parachutes, and then again jumped out the back of the plane. So it's flying.
It had landed, let everybody out.
Flying to Denver, Los Angeles. Instead, pit stop in San Francisco. Money and parachutes come on. Jeez. Passengers, most of the crew come off. Right? Yeah. It takes off again. This time, instead of flying further south to Los Angeles, the plane flies east. And he jumps out, the FBI believes, somewhere near Provo, Utah.
Nice.
I know, right?
The Mormons.
And then a couple days later, the FBI receives a tip that the hijacker's name is Richard McCoy.
Oh?
Of Provo, Utah.
Oh?
Police immediately descend on Richard McCoy's home. He's about to get in his car to drive to the National Guard base, where he is a helicopter pilot. He's about to start his search for Richard McCoy.
What?
Like he's about to fly in air like a helicopter looking for the hijacker that jumped out over Utah.
And it's him.
And so they
that's hilarious.
immediately catch him.
Wow.
And they find, how much money did he ask for?
$500,000.
Right. So they arrest him basically immediately, open up his closet, parachute, boom, got him. And then also $499,970 in cash. He had spent $30.
Richard, my buddy.
Of the new haul.
You gotta spend that faster. What?
They are elated. Now they just have to prove that he's guilty of both hijacks.
I don't think he is.
The timeline's possible.
Oh, yeah.
He drove from his home in Provo to Cedar, Utah, where he filled up his car with gasoline.
Okay.
And then later that evening or early the next morning, a phone number in Las Vegas called his home phone. So the theory they present is that he drove from Provo, Utah to Las Vegas and then flew from Las Vegas to Portland. And that is then where he boarded the flight.
Okay.
He is not able to provide any explanation or alibi, really, for his presence during that leg of the journey.
Okay.
But the age is not a really good match.
Yeah.
He's 29.
Oh.
And while not necessarily aging gracefully,
that is
not
a big
necessarily
difference.
mid-40s.
Yeah.
Also, his eye color doesn't match. And when I got to this part, it was giving a little bit of Stockholm syndrome.
Uh-huh.
Like, so Richard McCoy's eyes are blue, but all of the flight attendants were like, Cooper's eyes are brown. Like, I don't know if I've ever recorded the eye color of a single person outside of the people I have actively wanted to make out with. Like, if I want to make out with you, I know your eye color. And then, like, because I've stared at your face in this podcast.
I was about to be like, what color are my eyes?
I know yours are brown, but, like, I don't know if I could tell you Jacob's. I definitely couldn't tell you Casey's or, like, Danny's or Tyler's.
Oh, fuck.
Right. It's not a thing that, like, people know. So with every flight stewardess being like, brown, kind of hazel, but
which
mostly
is
brown.
Wild because I know that if, like, for instance, like Lydia walked in with color contacts, like
You'd
even
know immediately.
the like most realistic ones, I'd be like, something's not right. Like Uncanny Valley.
Ha 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 ha. It's a second Twilight reference. We haven't sang on this podcast in a while. We've lulled them into a sense of security. And as I drink more of this whiskey tea,
I like the look of a cigarette, but I
hate the way that it tastes.
Strike a pose, and when it glows, my cue to give it away.
And so his eyes don't match, and then they show the flight attendants pictures of Richard McCoy, and they're like, there's no way this man could be our Cooper. There's no way that this is who he is.
Not our Cooper.
Right. And then the tough thing is he also has an alibi that day. So the hijacking takes place on Thanksgiving Day, 1971. And Richard McCoy, for better or worse, is like, I was with my wife cooking a turkey. And his wife was like, he was.
That's a bad day to do a crime.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
So they're like, Richard McCoy, probably not DB Cooper. Fortunately, he's definitely the one that robbed that other flight. And they send him to 45 years in prison.
Yeah, sure.
He serves 3 months of it.
Oh.
Before he and a couple other inmates steal a garbage truck, or as Lydia knows them as,
buses.
Runs through a gate. That's a deep cut reference. She's wonderful, but when she hears that, we're going to get a text.
Yeah. She won't be happy.
Runs a gate, goes on a lam, okay? And after 3 months on the lam, comes home to his hideout to find 3 FBI agents in his living room. A gunfight ensues, and he is gunned down 6 months after entering prison. 6 months into a 45-year prison sentence.
That's rough, buddy. I mean, you kind of did the crime.
Right.
And then did another crime.
And so the case goes cold for a little bit.
I love a good cold case.
Until we get a reference. The Unabomber.
Yes!
In 2003, Minnesota resident Lyle Christensen was watching a television documentary about the Dan Cooper hijacking. and recognized the person as his late brother, Kenneth.
It's literally the Unabomber.
It's
The brother was like,
literally
hey,
the-
so not to be that person, but my brother's really weird.
Right. And what's even more fucked up is at this point, his older brother, Kenneth, is dead. So he's not even like, please don't make me spend time with him at Thanksgiving, which is what the Unabomber brother, he was like, he was always weird, and now I have proof.
David Kaczynski was like, oh,
Right.
God.
It's not even like an inheritance thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's all settled. And he's like, oh, shit.
He's like, that's my
Ken.
dead brother.
There's Kenny right there. That Kenny.
and he
Okay.
did say he only had 14 months left to live.
Right. So here's
That's
Kenny.
rough.
Kenneth Christensen enlisted in the Army in 1944 and was a trained paratrooper. World War II had ended by the time he was deployed
I'm
in
assuming
1945.
paratrooper.
Parachute troop.
Okay, cool.
You
That's
jump
what I thought.
out of a plane with gun, land, and you're like, pew, pew,
You're like a
here now.
guerrilla warfare guy, you know?
I love you so much because you, hilarious. I'm not even touching on that reference. Just a bunch of apes in the sky.
Thank you. I'm really good at deep cuts.
Good. Thank you. It's,
Edgar, I see you.
it's
but
great for new
only for
listeners.
this.
and I was about to be like, I love you so much because this just, again, reminds me that you have never watched Band of Brothers. Something
yes.
that I rewatch at least once a year.
I actually actively try and avoid World War II movies.
That's actually so good.
Yeah.
Because it's a real fine line from being like, oh, I just kind of love history. And I think it's an interesting time to look at like Patriots in America versus like, I think some of the ideologies have a lot going on. And it's never like a strong central government that the United States was running at the time. You know?
Sure.
I got to continue.
Something to do.
So he's deployed in 1945 as the war is ending, but he goes on several training jumps while stationed in Japan as part of the occupation forces. After leaving the army, he joins Northwest Orient Airlines in
So he knows the process and everything.
Correct.
of the airline.
In 1954, he joins the airline as a laborer stationed at Northwest Airlines' Far East stopover on Shemya Island in the Aleutian Islands.
Sure.
He subsequently became a flight attendant and then a purser and then gets based in
purser?
Seattle. Purser.
Do we know what that is?
No. Someone with money, though, I think. It's like, it's a promotion for sure. I can pause for station
I'm gonna look it up
identification.
for a second. I'm just curious. An official on a ship responsible for papers and accounts, and on a passenger ship also for the comfort and welfare of passengers. The second definition is a steward on an airline.
Yeah, so head stewardess.
Okay,
Cool. So becomes a purser and was 45 years old, exactly, at the time of the hijacking.
Tina is like, I'm good.
Exactly. Other things that help point to it being Kenneth
Yeah.
is that after the hijacking, Kenneth buys a house in southern Washington. Also, after he died, his family finds a box of newspaper clippings about
the
Northwest
thing?
Orient Airlines, and
Okay.
they stop immediately after the hijacking, despite the fact that he continues to work for them
Oh, he
And-
keeps working for them?
for a little bit while longer.
That's the most badass part.
I know. Except for the part that it's not him.
Really?
Uh-huh. I'm glad I kind of caught you there for a little bit. Okay. So there's issues with it being Kenneth.
Okay.
He's shorter, like
Oh.
5'8". The eyewitness depictions of Cooper.
Don't match at all.
Christensen does smoke, as did the hijacker, and displayed a fondness for bourbon. But stewardess Florence Schaffner told authorities that photos of Christensen. Wait, hold on. Oh, yeah, here it goes. That photos of Christensen fit the description of Cooper more than other people that she had seen. Like he was closer, but that it wasn't him.
Wow.
And that was corroborated then by other witnesses who also said that's not him.
Yeah.
It's not him. That wasn't it for Lyle Christensen, though, who is convinced that it's his brother.
It's Kenneth, yeah.
Tries to get the FBI to investigate. The FBI is like, dude, we kind of did, and it's not him.
It's not him, yeah.
So he naturally turns to Nora Ephron.
yes.
whom he tried to get to make a movie about the case to bring attention
it's
to
not
the
Cocaine
fact
Bear.
that his
Calm down.
brother is a hijacker.
Yeah, what kind of weird vendetta is that?
And this is how you know it's not Kenneth, because even Nora Ephron was like, no, it's not him, and I'm not going to make a movie. So he he hires a private investigator, and the private investigator's name is Skip. And I'm like, that's your last leg, babes.
That was my
That's your
granddad's
last
name.
leg. Oh, was it really? His like legal name or his nickname?
His nickname. What was his first name I think was Gordon.
Okay.
But everyone called him Skip.
So
Skippy.
Skip publishes a book as to like why it's definitely Kenneth, but it's like definitely not
calm
Kenneth.
Down. Yeah. You have to publish a book to convince people. I think you might be wrong.
If you have to publish a book after the FBI and Nora Ephron are both like definitely not him, then it's not him.
I don't even think I need to care about Nora Ephron's opinion. I think if the FBI are like,
I have two more people to tell you about before I get to the big one. Okay. So then the next is Theodore Ernest Mayfield, who is a Special Forces veteran, pilot, competitive skydiver, skydiving instructor, resident of
Portland,
of Seattle.
Oh, Seattle. Okay.
In 1994, he would serve time for negligent homicide after two of his students died when their parachutes failed to open.
What's the difference between negligent homicide and manslaughter?
You're truly such a dumbass that you have murdered someone with your dumbassery versus like that was an accident, but your accident killed somebody.
Okay.
So served time for a while. Also kind of tangentially responsible for 13 additional skydiving deaths.
Who kept letting this man teach skydiving?
They eventually threw him in prison because they found out he was piloting airplanes 26 years after his pilot license got expired.
To Cuba? I can only imagine.
Just around town. And so while everyone thinks it should be Teddy Mayfield unfortunately has a really solid alibi.
Yeah.
During the hijacking, he's on the plane with the FBI instructing them on skydiving.
Oh, yeah, that's a really solid alibi.
And now we get...
It's the big one.
To Barbara Dayton.
Barbara
Dayton.
I do love a woman.
I'm about to say a lot of words at you.
Okay.
And I want you to be able to follow me. Okay. Barbara Dayton was a recreational pilot and University of Washington librarian. She was also a trans woman.
Okay.
Before transitioning, she served in the U.S. Merchant Marines and then in the Army during World War II.
Okay.
After discharge, Dayton worked with explosives for construction companies and aspired to a professional airline career, but could not obtain her pilot's license.
Okay.
Dayton had gender reassignment surgery in 1969. And
the hijacking happened in
71.
71, okay.
And is believed to be the first person to have had that type of surgery in Washington State.
Oh my gosh.
She claims also to have done it. She admits to the crime.
Do they identify as male?
So 2 years after the hijacking, she says, I presented myself as a male to get back at the airline industry and the FAA for the insurmountable rules, conditions, and obstacles that prevented me from achieving my lifelong dream of being an airline pilot.
Seems very dramatic.
I mean, be queer, do crime.
Fair enough. Wait, okay, so she is male to female trans?
Yeah, she's a trans woman.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, cool. And okay, gotcha.
So
and
that's
that
why
happened in 69 and the crime happened in 71.
Right.
And she just presented as a male.
Which is why she would have been drafted in World War II before her transition. And so she claims that she presented as a man on the plane.
To get back at them.
And then that she takes the money and has hidden it in Woodburn, Oregon, a suburban area just south of Portland. Eventually, she recants the entire story.
Yeah.
Probably because she finds out that the statute of limitations
Is not
up yet.
Yeah. It just feels like a crazy thing to like randomly reach out because it sounds like she was like, hey, by the way, that was me.
Correct.
It wasn't like, did you do this?
Well, I think she started telling friends first. She was like, yeah, I'm Cooper. I'm like, I got back at them.
Listener, it's just you and me now. In another lifetime, this is the level of drama I see Grant aspiring to. And we're back.
Thank you, Barbie. Okay. So we're going to keep talking about the suspect. But
Okay.
before I do, there's a special person I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because clearly this whole case
Yeah.
continues to garner attention. There's like HBO movies and Netflix series about it. It was big at the time. It's big now. Just at its 50th anniversary.
Wow. Yeah.
And I want to take a second to talk about a side of true crime that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel comfortable telling this story because I don't feel like it's necessarily exploiting like a victim's legacy.
Yeah.
No one actually dies in this, but there is still a victim of this experience. And it's 22-year-old Tina Mucklow, who then gets hounded for 50 years for more details, more information. Why did she do it?
Because
Where
she's
is the
spending
money?
the most. People think she did it.
Or that she was in on it, or that she was an accomplice of some kind. So in 2021, she sat down with Rolling Stone to give this interview.
Oh, good.
A lot of this
I love
is
a
just,
Rolling Stone interview.
They're so good.
Girl, if you do enough research into like these random ass topics
Yes.
that Grant and I do, you just happen upon the fact that for some reason Rolling Stone produces insane quality articles.
Right.
Like you think it'll be New York Times, and they do produce great stuff. Washington Post produces like good enough stuff. The New Yorker produces good. The Rolling Stone, you know you're about to get the tea.
Correct. The Rolling Stone
Yeah.
they do such a good job too of putting the human first in their pieces. I think some
Their
of the
stuff on Patty Hearst was my favorite.
Yeah, their stuff on Reality Winner was
Yeah.
solid. That's where I got the horse quote from.
I know. I have to look at all of your sources
Yeah.
to hyperlink them.
I almost was restricted from being able to read this Rolling Stone article.
It keeps the ad blocker
Correct.
thing.
So I just put on a pair of like glasses, fake mustache or whatever, aka signed
Incognito.
in on a different email
We can
and
get
pulled it up. I know, but I have 3 different emails that I pretty regularly access, and so until we need to spend the money, we will.
The
but right
subscriptions
now
are also cheap.
I
But
know.
I'm not genuinely not worried about
I'm not either, but we can still get it for free.
That's fair. And yeah. fair enough.
So, this is now from the Rolling Stone article. The way Mucklow describes it, she was just doing her job when a man opened his briefcase to show her a row of what looked like sticks of dynamite hooked to a battery. At first, she thought she'd be sick. Quote, I can remember looking at the seat pocket in front of me and seeing the barf bag. Instead of reaching for it, though, Mucklow, who was raised Lutheran, started
Hey.
to pray. I know, it's us.
Wow. Representation.
And then this next quote is like, hey, I recognize it from the people in my life, like my relatives
Yeah.
and my mom, some of my own upbringing. I don't have it anymore. I wish I did. Mucklow starts to pray. And this is
Okay.
what it says. She
Girl, I
prayed
see
for the
you.
fellow passengers, looking at the backs of their head, knowing their families were
that's-
expecting them to arrive soon for Thanksgiving.
Ooh, I have chills.
She prayed for herself and her own family, knowing that she might not see them again.
Wow.
She thanked God for the blessings in her life and asked forgiveness for her faults and failures, coming to terms at the age of 22 with her own imminent death.
Wow.
She then prayed for the hijacker. I prayed for him and his family and for forgiveness for him too. And then I just kind of let go of it all and I felt peace.
I'm sorry. Wait, Tina's the second stewardess
Correct.
to interact with him. Why are people not targeting the other one?
Because the other one kind of disappears at that point. Like for whatever reason, Dan Cooper's focuses on Tina Mucklow
That
as
I
his
feel like
go-between.
makes me feel like the other stewardess is more suspicious. She manages, if it were me committing this crime,
Sure.
and I'm trying to protect the lives of my accomplices,
Right.
I'm going to make sure that my accomplice, especially if I think there's a chance that my plane is going to get gunned down,
I'm going to make sure my accomplice is not on the plane.
Sure. Or I need the accomplice to make sure that the back door opens and that no funny business happens. And I need my accomplice to know what we are trying to negotiate to make this whole thing happen. And that's why I need someone on the inside.
I feel like there's just so many moving pieces with that. You want someone who's genuinely innocent because the FBI has people that are like criminal, like forensic experts who can like likely tell a lie from seeing the way that you talk or the way that you carry yourself in those kinds of situations. And
Right.
that would give it away. I don't know. It's also misogyny, just like point blank.
Right. I don't trust this woman. She must be holding something back.
If she was involved and innocent.
Right.
Yeah.
There's this final detail that if she knew, then we'd figure out the rest of this story and it all come together
Therefore,
nicely.
it's her fault.
Right. Back to Tina Mucklow. The hijacker had insisted on Mexico City as the destination, and when the 727 took off again out of Seattle, bound for their first stop in Reno, Nevada, Mucklow was the only person in the cabin with the man in the suit and dark glasses. She remembers thinking, quote, "I think the one feeling that was at the forefront in my mind was that I just felt so alone."
Yeah.
Because the pilots and flight engineer are locked
Or
in the
cockpit.
cockpit. She has to be in the cabin with him. And that has to be such a surreal experience. Because you might have forgotten this at the start of the been mentioned this at the start of the episode. They're flying low.
Yes.
They're flying with the door open. And they're flying with the lights off.
Yeah.
So she's alone.
And all the windows closed.
Correct.
Yeah.
So she's alone. She can hear the storm raging outside with a man with a bomb.
Yeah.
To Mucklow, time seemed to slow down as they climbed to the demanded low altitude of 10,000 feet. It was almost 8 p.m. She helped the hijacker open the door that led to the stairs at the back of the aircraft, causing a rush of noise to fill the aircraft. She showed him how to lower the stairs, hoping she wouldn't get sucked out into the rainy night sky when he opened it. 4 or 5 minutes after the plane had taken off, the skyjacker told Mucklow she could go join the pilots in the cockpit.
Did you intentionally say skyjacker? Because I love that.
That's the FBI term for all of these people. Do you want to take a guess as to what the other term they use is?
No.
Sky pirate, which very well might be the name of this episode.
I do love that.
I know you would.
Sky pirate? Get out of here. That's good.
Back to Mucklow in the cabin.
She's told to go back to the cockpit.
Cooper said, go into the cockpit. Mucklow, quote, "Probably one of the last things I did was I turned to him and I said, will you please take the bomb with you?" She doesn't think he answered her. He was busy preparing the parachutes.
Yeah.
For Mucklow and the pilots, the ordeal was nearly over. Quote, "Being able to reunite with the rest of my crew and coming through the cockpit was an amazing experience. We were still in harm's way, but I wasn't alone. All of us looked at each other, and there was just this sense of amazement. On the runway, Mucklow waited until she was in the backseat of an FBI car before she broke down.
Yeah.
I sobbed like I'd never sobbed before." To some, on the 727 that day, Mucklow was the hero of the ordeal, easing the stress of the passengers, keeping it all secret, super calm, collected. She just had this mild air about her that would leave anybody who speaks with her confident in what she says and does. She just like commanded the situation, said the pilot of the craft.
And a woman with confidence really scares a lot of insecure men.
Correct. But to others, Mucklow is a key. Since the 70s, Dan Cooper enthusiasts have hounded her for answers about what happened.
So annoying.
Some seem to think of her as a savior who will be able to put to rest all of the rest of the burning questions around this case.
If she wanted to, she would have. If she had those answers, she would have.
Right, she would have said it.
Yeah.
After all, she did spend more time than anyone else with the hijacker. Her hesitancy to speak publicly about the events has fueled conspiracy theories that she must know more than she lets on.
Maybe it's because they haven't fucking solved it. Jesus.
You're going to love one of the quotes that is coming up here
I'm
soon.
excited.
They think that there's something wrong with you, that you're connected to the person, and that you're hiding something.
Boo.
Despite rumors swirling online, Mucklow says her decision not to talk wasn't a cover-up or some deep conspiracy. Again, remember, she fully corroborates with the FBI.
Yeah.
And provides a physical description that in a different city perfectly matches that of her coworker.
Yeah.
She explains her silence this way, quote, I went on with my life. I pursued what I needed to do, had my own personal interests, likes, and wants. I wanted to be defined by that, not by the hijacking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super fucking fair. She was 22 at the time.
Right. She then talks about her working conditions for a second.
Also, it was the FBI. There's a solid chance that they said, don't say anything until we solve the case.
Correct. 100%.
Because we need to keep what you know secret in case we do find a suspect.
We're literally chasing down suspects right now.
Yeah.
We do not want you to give away anything.
People are like, oh my God, she's so suspicious. Shut the fuck up.
And so I've loved that you have been
Gross.
frustrated at the treatment of women in this section, because this specifically is going to make
God.
you furious. In the 1960s, flight attendants are considered more ornamental than heroic. Mucklow and all of the flight attendants had been trained on how to handle emergency procedures like how to put out fires and help passengers who are having a heart attack. But when she was hired as a stewardess with Northwest Orient in the spring of 1969, she had to agree to maintain her slim figure and to never wear glasses.
Gross.
She also signed a contract promising to retire by the time she turned 30.
Literally horrific.
They had just allowed the married flight attendants to wear wedding rings. And it was only the contract before that it even allowed attendants to be married.
Disgusting.
Also,
you're literally just like opening up men to like predate on these fucking women.
Right.
You know the biggest change I noticed when Casey and I got engaged, especially living in the heart of Denver,
men started to respect you more.
men stopped catcalling me. I only started getting catcalled by people driving by in cars
Who couldn't
because
see your
they
ring.
couldn't see the ring, or if my ring was like hidden.
Right.
I saw the number of men I saw walk past me and clock the ring while I was walking with the dogs and then not say a goddamn word. Literally, fuck you and your misogyny. Like, because I belong to someone now.
Right.
Also, if you're a woman out there who keeps getting catcalled in the city, buy a silicone ring off of Amazon. They're super cheap and apparently super fucking effective.
And also, this isn't ancient history when this is happening, which is
No,
why
it's so recent.
Right, which is why it's so important to continue to talk about how messed up the current situation is, to continue to push narratives around like protecting women, about like how women experience our world differently in basically almost every fundamental aspect.
Yeah.
My mom is born before Tina Mucklow is a flight attendant.
Oh my gosh.
And I have 4 aunts on that side who are all older than my mom. I'm 31. And every single woman who like was around or responsible for like my raising as a child was born before they could be married and a flight attendant. Before
Jesus
they could be
Christ.
not slim and a flight attendant.
It's just insane that there are jobs that were dependent on your marital status and
Right.
your weight.
Right. I mean, women still in 1969 can't get credit cards.
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Okay. Here's the next part. And things get better. Things get better.
That's really good to hear.
Mucklow had no idea how the hijacking would continue to impact her life. It happened when she was 22. She worked for another 10 years. Guess she broke the promise to retire at 30. Before retiring in 1981 and entering a monastery as a nun.
Wow.
Years later, that transition would continue to fuel even more speculation on the Dan Cooper case.
Yeah, because conspiracy theorists will take
Right.
whatever and run with it.
And that's something that you especially know right now.
Yeah, I do. Tune in next week.
Was she driven into the sisterhood by something the hijacker did to her? Was the move a
fuck
cover
you.
for entering witness protection?
Her life doesn't have to revolve around the actions of a man.
Right. She says to the Rolling Stone, she converted to Catholicism in 1978 and wanted to explore her own spirituality and find a deeper prayer life. It had nothing to do with the FBI.
It's almost like she was so sick of men
Correct.
trying to define her life that she was like, you know what? Only one man for me now.
Say that line one more time.
She was sick of her life being defined by men.
The vast majority of people making these requests, around 90 or 95%, are men.
Yep.
And at times, the harassment has been intense. For every professionally persistent journalist who's reached out to her over the years, she's endured aggressive Dan Cooper obsessives who won't take no for an answer. There have been many times when I felt that people didn't respect no or not interested, or just the fact that I didn't even reach out and contact them back.
The doll people are quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is there to say?
It's a song reference. I'm just
There
going to
are
let it kind of
men
go.
with a day to save. Good God.
Although it isn't a formal way of saying no, it's a nonverbal way of saying not interested when you don't respond to someone. Some people have knocked on her door and then sat in their car outside her house after she refused interviews. Someone once sent photos of her in the parking lot of her workplace. One caller said a Christian woman would return their calls.
Shut the how dare you use her faith against her like that?
Correct. In one blog post, just one blog post of many, one obsessive called Mucklow a social isolate, quick to anger, bitter, reclusive, fragile, a wounded woman who has been, quote, traumatized. All in one post.
What the fuck?
On the rare occasions that Mucklow has weighed in on a suspect, she says she's sometimes been met with disappointment or contempt for not affirming what they were hoping was true.
Oh,
If I didn't say, oh yes, that's Dan Cooper, it's like, oh, poor thing, she's old and doesn't remember. Or she doesn't know because she has glasses now.
Sorry.
She can't see so well.
Oh, poor thing who can't find a new hobby past something that happened in 71.
Correct. So at this point, you've
the
probably been able to
fuck?
read between the tea lines, but I'll just name it. They never catch Dan Cooper.
Ugh, this poor woman.
In 2016, the FBI closed the Dan Cooper case.
Yeah.
Mucklow says she felt sad. She wished they had found the hijacker and charged him. Quote, he was a criminal who is not only threatening my life, but the lives of those innocent people on the flight. At the same time, she understands the decision. Quote, I recognize that it was probably the right thing to do, given the amount of time that has passed and knowing all the needs of the world today.
Yeah.
Sounds like a person who found a prayer life, was a nun for like a decade, wants a quiet life, and doesn't want to be followed or like hounded.
Honestly, like also probably wishes it was closed so people would stop like stalking her.
Right.
Essentially.
We're getting close to the end.
God.
We're not there yet, but we're getting close to the end. They never find Dan Cooper.
The soundtrack for the last half of this episode is The Doll People by Sophia is
Just rage.
Yeah, just feminine rage. Just real feminine rage.
So now I'm going to clarify a couple of lingering questions for us, okay? The reason why they probably never find Dan Cooper is because they're actually pretty sure he died on the jump that night.
Oh no, that's actually really sad.
Sorry. Yeah, let that sink in for a
I
second.
thought that
No, not of
I
old
thought
age.
he actually like died at like 14 months after.
No,
or something. Yeah, okay.
they're actually pretty sure he died that
didn't
night.
make it,
And basically all the clues and all of the letters and everything was fake. Here's the rationale. From the beginning, the FBI agents weren't even sold he survived the jump that night. They are immediately scouring the area the next day.
Yeah.
But the storm and the fact that it's night means they
makes
don't
it
get a
hard.
chance to
Yeah.
search it that night. So they're searching it the next day. There's several reasons for the idea to support the conclusion that Cooper died. For instance, while they have a bunch of leads, none of them necessarily point to hardcore evidence of skydiving experience. And even if he did have skydiving experience, no one skydives off the back of a commercial jetliner flying at that speed and at that altitude. Even if it is slower and lower than those planes usually fly, it's still really high up there.
What happened? Did the other guy who did this also demand that
Richard
they fly low and slow?
Oh, you're going to love this.
Okay.
So, I'm just hold on to that
Okay,
question
okay.
for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So like they actually have no real ability to prove that Dan Cooper has any skydiving experience, and
Okay.
even if he does, probably not at that altitude.
Okay.
But they're also like maybe he was more just like aware of skydiving or had done a little bit of it, but wasn't fully prepared. because he still didn't ask for all of the appropriate protective equipment.
That's true,
Like,
yeah.
for instance, a helmet, okay? A nighttime skydive into a heavily wooded area
You're
would
gonna
be
hit your
hard
head.
for anybody to do.
Or get hella scraped up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And also, like, if his plan the entire time was to jump out of the back of the airplane, then he did not dress for surviving the night in the Washington wilderness during a rainstorm. He's wearing like a button-up shirt and he takes off his clip-on tie.
That's true.
So lack of knowledge of lack of knowledge of skydiving, lack of safety equipment, lack of survival equipment, and also just kind of seems to jump out of the plane once he's ready, as opposed to having like a specific location he's trying to hit, right?
Yeah.
Because weeks later, the pilot will be like, hey, so because I had to manually fly the plane, I'm actually pretty sure it was further east than the flight path would have put us on originally. So he was like...
So even if he knew like what time to jump off, it
Right.
would have been the wrong
They
spot.
wouldn't have been in the right spot.
Because that was my other thing that like here's my thing. If he did survive, he deserves it.
Right.
You know, like he deserves everything that he got. Like, because that means he had to plant all of the equipment that he would have needed to then continue to survive in that wilderness. But that's a good point with the flight path. He wouldn't have been easily probably able to find it.
And so this is now a huge debate in the Dan Cooper case as to whether or not he would survive. Because a lot of people are like, not enough experience to survive it. We concluded after a few years that this was simply not true. No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night in the rain with 172 mile per hour winds in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. It was simply too risky. However, skydiving instructor Earl Cosey, who supplied the parachutes that Cooper used, said this: anyone who had 6 or 7 practice jumps could accomplish this. But Cosey then notes that jumping at night does dramatically increase the risk of injury.
Does he have luggage? Do we know?
No, he just like walks on his own. It's not like they have a bag they can go through.
Yeah.
He takes the bomb with him though, which is
That's
in
what
his
I'm saying
case.
is like, is there a chance that he had some of that survival equipment with him in whatever
The case looked
luggage
to
he
be
had?
kind of 99% bomb, from what I understand.
I'm still not actually convinced it was a real bomb.
I'm also not sure, but
Yeah.
I get not taking that risk.
Oh no, I'm not saying that anyone should take that risk, but I am saying I feel like there's a chance that it could be like a facade of a bomb and there's like a
Right.
false bottom or some spy shit, you know?
So, although the contents of Cooper's 4-inch by 12-inch by 14-inch paper bag are unknown, Cooper did not use any of the bag's contents to assist him during the hijacking. So the FBI speculated the bag contained items Cooper needed for his jump, such as boots, gloves, and goggles, which again would make sense. Might not help him survive in the Washington wilderness for long, but keeping your
At least help a little while
Right.
you're falling.
feet and hands like warm, yeah, that could potentially be the
But
thing.
then why would you not wait until you're closer to Reno when the tree cover is less?
Right, well then because the tree cover's less, it's easier to find you alone in the desert. Third, Cooper did not have an accomplice. We've covered this already, but it's like, he just kind of jumps when he's ready. Moreover,
Plot twist, his accomplice is the Unabomber.
right. Also, he said, "Fly me to Mexico City," and then the flight crew was like, "What about Reno?" And he's like, "Okay." So like, if he did have an
is wild,
accomplice,
yeah.
unless of course it's Tina Mucklow, it's not. That was like a
No.
joke. It's definitely not. But it's,
My thought is that it's very possible that he could have said Mexico City and like decided ahead of time that he was going to have to compromise on those fuel stops as a way to like kind of ease the
But it's the flight crew that
suspicions.
says Reno. It's
Yeah.
not Dan Cooper who says, let's stop in Reno then. They go, we can get to Reno first. And he says yes. And a flight path to Reno is different than a flight path to Mexico City. So if your ride is waiting outside of Areola, Washington, right? Like you can't guarantee that you're going to... Areola, Washington. You can't guarantee that you're going to fly over that,
Hi, my name is Maya. I'm from Areola.
Hi, Maya. And my dad was Dan Cooper.
Insane.
That's how I bought this house.
Yeah. Shh. Don't tell anyone.
Dan Cooper's John across the street. And he used all of the money to buy the
That house.
40 years ago. Finally, the ransom money was never spent.
Oh, because that
It
is
was
actually
all marked.
dead on.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So assuming that after he jumped off the plane, the money bag wasn't then violently ripped from him, assuming that he did land with the money. Never spent any of it. It never popped up in U.S. circulation. And, Canada cooperates, and I'm sure would have turned over some of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's the closest country he's near. It's not like he's close to Mexico when he's in
I feel
southern
like
Washington.
there are ways to launder money, but back in the 70s, I feel like probably not as easily.
Right.
Yeah.
However, a senior FBI agent anonymously is quoted in 1976 by the Seattle Times to say this, quote, "I think Cooper made it. I think he slept in his own bed that night. It was a clear night. A lot of the country is actually pretty flat. He could have just walked out of the forest, right down the road. Hell, they weren't even looking for him until the next morning. They thought he was somewhere else. He could have just walked down the road."
And that optimistic FBI agent was Grant Thomas.
Okay, but here's the crazy thing, though.
Okay.
So everyone's like, yeah, he probably died after he jumped out of the plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the 2 years after his escape, there are 5 copycats who pull off basically the
same
exact
stunt.
same height, and all 5
Fail.
survive.
Fail, get caught is what I
They
was
all
thinking.
get caught.
Yeah.
But they all survive
survive.
the jump. They all get to the jump off the back of the plane, and land and survive.
Where did they land, though? Because one was Provo-ish.
Right. One's Provo, one's Indiana, right?
Okay.
And so they're kind of all over the country. I
Yeah.
didn't track down the other 3, but all 5 of the people who then do it after him
Survive.
survive.
Yeah, so it's possible.
Right.
I think the only things against him are that it's like
100% survival rate.
Well, I would like to know the conditions. Like, I guess I want to know more about the geography of where he jumped off. Because in my head, I'm picturing because those are huge trees,
Right.
that could actually really mess you up.
Right.
And the fact that it's night and the storm. So I'm wondering if any of those 5 had similar kinds of conditions.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to replicate it in a
no.
vacuum, but the fact that the people who follow his
I'm a
game plan
scientist.
100% survive their jumps is crazy.
It's crazy.
And so Dan Cooper jumps in 1971. He jumps in southern Washington. Okay. The issue is southern Washington has a different major event happen around this time.
The Oakville Blob incident?
No. The eruption of Mount St. Helen,
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
which the FBI believes buries much of the evidence, including potentially Dan Cooper's body. Mount St. Helen erupts in March of 1980. I'm going to say that
Okay.
again. March of 1980.
So that's 9 years after.
Correct.
Yeah.
Except one piece of evidence emerges in February of 1980.
Okay.
8-year-old Brian Ingram is vacationing with his family on the Columbia River at a beachfront known as Tina Bar, about 9 miles downstream
Okay.
from Vancouver, Washington.
Where I almost ended up on accident.
Not Vancouver, Canada, which is very much somewhere else. Vancouver,
Okay.
Washington is about 20 miles southwest of Ariel.
Okay.
As he raked the sandy riverbank to build a campfire, he discovered something. Do you want to take a guess as to what he finds?
The paper bag.
He discovers 3 packets of cash totaling $5,800. The bills had disintegrated from lengthy exposure to the elements, but were still bundled in rubber bands. FBI technicians confirmed that the money was a portion of the ransom. 2 packets of $120 bills and a third packet of 90, all arranged in the same order as when they were given to Cooper. And then a month later, Mount St. Helen erupts.
And
Was the eruption of Mount St. Helen a plot to hide evidence recently uncovered about Dan
that's what
Cooper?
I was about to say.
Probably not, but I think we got to ask
I
the
think
question.
it could happen. The Democrats control the weather.
They control the weather. There's this Avatar: The Last Airbender meme of him creating a little tornado, and someone captured it. Biden and Kamala in the Gulf of Mexico, apparently. As they're What a flawless
so
transition
fucked
from
up,
a
and I love
mic
it.
drop piece of
Yeah.
evidence to just immediately 30 seconds, maybe even less.
We're good. We're good like that.
We're good at
Yeah.
this. We're sick.
Keep you on your
We
toes.
get you all the way to the edge
Yeah.
of serious, and then before we become a legitimate podcast,
Wee,
dancing hands. We're just
wee.
right, because this is an audio platform. Our hands are
Yeah.
waving above our heads right now.
Yes. In a circle.
The way that piece of evidence means something to me, like emotionally, is hard for me to explain. I think that's so interesting. I'm
Because it's
confused.
not the full amount,
It's not the full amount.
which means it could have easily just been ripped out of his bag,
Right.
which doesn't necessarily discount the fact that he survived or died.
Right. Or he did survive and he understood that he couldn't spend it all at once. And so he
Dropped some of
buried
it.
it in different parts. Right. Or he completely misses his jump, or because his parachute he can't steer and lands in the river. And the reason why we never see him is he drowns in the river as the parachute pulls him under.
him down, yeah.
And then he gets trapped in the sandbar, and then his body disintegrates more quickly because it's in the water. But the things that are still wrapped together get like pushed elsewhere, right? So like there's a potential that that's because
Yeah.
money's not made out of paper. Money's actually made out of cotton, which does take longer than to disintegrate, right?
Yeah.
But also it's like that
This
just
is your
feels too
Dyatlov
convenient.
pass.
It
You're going to be
is.
on like Reddit
I
threads for the
know
next
I
3
am.
months
No,
because
I-
that's where I'm at with the Dyatlov pass.
I-
Anytime any news thing gets posted, my phone is like, you never followed any of these, but we think you want to know.
Right. Because I'm over here too, like, so was Dan Cooper military or was he not? You know?
That's the big, because that changes a lot about
Right.
what you think then
Right.
happens next. Because
No, but here's the thing. The thing that actually upsets me even more, okay? Dan Cooper didn't just come out of nowhere.
yeah,
So Dan Cooper had an apartment that he rented.
under Dan Cooper.
Okay, sure, whatever. But he had an apartment that he rented,
Okay.
or he had a home that he owned, or he lived with parents or somebody. But
Someone had to have known if he went missing.
he lived somewhere, and then that tenant disappeared, or that
at
home
the same time Dan
went
Cooper died.
vacant, and his picture and his description is all over the news. And
Not in the 70s necessarily, though.
like, you're not reading the newspaper, you're not seeing the nightly
It's
news.
not like
It's-
the TV is the same, though, as like,
Sure, but it is
doing
a
whole
time
stories.
where like there's like kind of one national narrative around the news, because it's the like evening paper and like the newspaper, like the news in front of you, and also like if he was from the Oregon or Washington area, because he boards a flight from Portland to Seattle, like it gets especially covered in that local area,
in that local area, yeah.
right? Which is why I think he did live near Portland or in Vancouver, Washington, which is why he jumped. And his plan was always to jump before he got to Mexico City.
Oh, yeah,
It was
100%.
always the jump in southern Washington area.
He wouldn't have asked
which-
for parachutes unless his plan was to
Correct.
jump.
I also think he took that flight or similar flights multiple times so you can memorize the terrain from the sky
Yeah.
during the day when you can see Portland, you can see the Columbia River, you can see Vancouver, Washington, things like that. So you know when to jump specifically.
Even without seeing out the
right.
windows.
So then if that is true,
Mm-hmm.
he might have slept in his bed that night.
He might still be alive.
He might still be alive. It would be shocking. He'd be in
Yeah,
his
that's true.
90s, but that's a living age still,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, like, you're right. Jumping from that high of altitude in the middle of the night during a storm to a heavily wooded area, you're going to hit something, you're going to break something. Like, even if you survive the initial landing, breaking your legs in the woods like that and you can't walk, right?
That's
Things
crazy,
like that,
yeah.
you're going to die. You're going to die out there,
Mhm.
right? Especially if you're trying to haul all that cash away.
All that moolah.
Right, exactly. Unless, of course, he survived. And the reason why we never found him is because he was like living in like a cabin or whatever. But
I
then,
love this side of you.
but then how do you wash that money, right? Do you then get in a car 2 days later and then you drive down to Mexico and you spend it there, where like American cash floats around as its own local currency in the
Yeah.
1970s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then if that's true, then like, why didn't you wait until you got further? Why didn't you jump out near Reno or Yuma when you'd be a lot closer?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, you needed other things in your house and thus you needed the cash. Jump out in southern Washington, spend the night, shower up, clean up, fix a broken arm or whatever. Then you get into your car and maybe he's living in the woods, which is why he's able to kind of just like kind of appear, right? He's like a major hiker or
North
whatever.
Pond hermit.
Right, exactly.
We will connect them all.
Or maybe he's a North Pond hermit, dies in the crash, and that's why no one actually notices when he's dead because he didn't have
a connection.
Right. He didn't have a person that knew he wasn't paying property taxes, or like the person that he was renting from.
Like if he was old enough or something, whatever he had was paid off.
Right.
And it's like sitting as an abandoned cabin somewhere.
Right. It's just, and I know this is now a modern day's perspective on it all, but it's like, how does one not exist before this moment?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
like I have oftentimes joked that one of my superpowers is how, like, when I shut up, how generic I am. Right? I'm just like a bald, bearded white man. I can kind of walk through any space.
I spend a lot of time looking at your face, and occasionally I'll see a bald, bearded white man out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, that's Grant.
I could steal the Declaration of Independence.
Please don't. We need you for the podcast.
Well, it's actually mostly faded, so you don't even want it anymore.
That's
so
true.
this is, and it's fun because other than potentially Dan Cooper, no one died.
Yes.
An insurance company had to pay Northwest Orient Airlines the ransom money back. And the kid that found the money in 1980, I think it's taken by the FBI. And
lame.
he's like, well, I found it.
Yeah, that's
it's
mine. Finders keepers.
It's a leg I found in the smoker. It's mine. We will connect
will
every
connect
episode.
them
This
all.
one. He's like, that was such a crazy episode. That I just
think about
pulled
that one a
out
lot.
of the
Yes.
blue.
Yeah.
Out on a limb, if you want to know what we're referencing.
We're referencing a lot of them, so you just got to stay on top
But
of that.
that's a title I will never forget.
No, that's a really good title.
Thank you. Like I will never be
Yeah.
better than that. What were we just saying about? Oh, right. So the kid's like, I
That's
found
mine.
it.
My
It's
money. Money,
mine.
please.
Right, exactly. And so they're like,
Can't say no to
we're
a
going to
kid.
take 14 of these bills to hold on to evidence. And
But
then
then
he
you
has
can
to
have the-
split it with the insurance company. Keep in mind, he finds like $5,000
That's
in like
still
1970s
so much
cash.
money back
And
then.
so once they give it to him, they're
Yeah.
like, here you go. He's like, thank you. Highest bidder, for sale, eBay. And he makes like $40,000 selling his portion of the money.
I love that.
I know. I also love the phrase selling his portion of the money.
on eBay.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then last section. I love how this has accidentally ended up being like one of my longer episodes when I did like weeks of research on Reality Winner.
That's the beauty of the podcast.
It's also the beauty of true crime where you're like, I just gave you 3 who I thought were interesting suspects. There's at least 15.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't have time for this. We'll lose the thread after a while. So the final word, and I don't love it, but I do think they do a nice job summarizing it. I'm going to give the final word to the FBI, who has a great track record on this case.
Sometimes their website, though, really does crack me up.
Like, I don't know what girly they have writing this stuff.
It's good. It's funny.
Yeah, I've just lifted it word for word.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay
the
to
same
steal
with
from
Anna
the
Chapman.
government.
We
Yeah.
will connect them all. When they have the picture of her laptop, though, I was like, why is this here?
Oh, hold on. Before we do, okay, so this is the 2 pieces of evidence: the tie left on the plane, and then the dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills, y'all.
Those are some fucked up dollar bills.
Yeah, they are. But you're like, that's cash.
That's cash. That's mine.
That-
Give it to me.
Money, baby. Okay, so the FBI learned of the crime in flight from Portland to Seattle and immediately opened up an extensive investigation that lasted decades, calling it NORJAC
Of course.
for Northwest Hijacking. Not the same girly as they have now, clearly.
Well, that's like the Unabomber. It was like university and airline bomber.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
Calling it NORJAC, or for Northwest Hijacking, quote, we interviewed hundreds of people, tracked leads across the nation, and secured the aircraft for evidence. By the 5-year anniversary of the hijacking, we had considered more than 800 suspects and eliminated all but 24 from consideration.
Wow.
Perhaps Cooper didn't survive his jump from the plane. After all, the parachute he used couldn't be steered. His clothing and footwear were unsuitable for a rough landing, and he had jumped into a wooded area at night, a dangerous proposition for a seasoned pro, which evidence suggests Cooper was not. This theory was given an added boost in 1980 when a young boy found a rotting package full of $20 bills that matched the ransom money's serial number. The daring hijack and disappearance remain an intriguing mystery for law enforcement and amateur sleuths alike. In 2016, the FBI officially closed its case. Today, it is the only unsolved plane jacking in history.
Wow. That's actually wild.
Air Pirate Dan Cooper.
Air Pirate.
Air Pirate.
I really like that. I think that's a
I
good
do
title.
too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's wild.
So here it is. Every
That's
now and then
fascinating.
I'll dip into true crime.
I love this side of you. I love this little like conspiracy theory. Like you're not conspiracy theory minded, but you're like,
No.
I'm not like, I mean, could it have been?
I think there's an element of stuff like this that like the thing that I connect to is this like the history element of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It feels more history than horror, which is important to me. And second, and this is why I have a really hard time at haunted houses. I'm bought into the narrative immediately. I lose all sense of myself. And so with stuff like that, I don't know if this is ever you, but in my mind's eye, I'm Dan Cooper. I have just jumped off the back of that plane.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens next? I probably see off in
Yeah.
the distance the flashing lights of the two fighter jets scrambled and the plane full of parachutes. But it's too dark and windy for them to have noticed that I'm jumping. I follow with my eyes
My
as the
cortisol levels have
planes.
spiked.
Okay, good. I followed with my eyes as all four of those planes
Pass you.
shoot past me. And I'm looking at the ground in a parachute I cannot steer and in a plume that I will decide when to pull, trying to figure out where am I supposed to land. Perhaps everything has gone according to plan so far.
Yeah.
Or perhaps none of it has. And the parachute was there in case at the last second I found out they were betraying me.
Yeah. That's.
And then I lost my cool on the flight. I don't know what his brain is. I don't know what the last thing he saw is. And I don't know if he's listening to us right now.
Gross.
And that's Air Pirates.
Hated that. Hated that little fact right there.
You never know who's listening. That's what last episode
I
proved.
think the reason that you can't handle true crime in the same way that I can is that you put yourself in the shoes of the victim
I
or the
get
perpetrator.
really into it
I
very
think
quickly.
the reason that I handle it a lot better is because what I'm imagining is like sitting at coffee with the person who experienced it or like their friend.
Asking questions.
Yeah. Or like they're just telling me, like the story I told you about my friend last night, the gossip,
Right, yeah.
like that, like where they're like, and you'll never guess what this person did next. And like that's where I'm like, tell me everything.
No,
That's
and
crazy. I can't believe it.
I am. What was the task they were preparing to do the next morning? The night they slipped into bed. Like that's where my brain goes. And I think there's also a smidge of a gender difference here because that's
true.
a fear you live with
Oh,
way
I'm
more
just scared.
than I do.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big, bald, bearded white guy, right? Like
yeah, that's
I
true.
always feel safe. And so to put myself in a story where I know the person that I'm connecting to isn't safe and like isn't
yeah.
going to turn out okay, it upsets me. It like makes me deeply uncomfortable. And I'm trying to like call out my privilege in that moment, but it's why it also freaks me out.
Can I tell you some true crime news that I came across?
I think you're
yesterday?
going to either way, but I
Yeah,
want to
probably.
hear it.
There's a woman on TikTok, I believe it's like Katie something.
Nice.
5 days ago, as of maybe it was 6 days ago now. I can't remember if I saw it last night or this morning. She was digging something. It was just, so she has a back fence, but it's like a short back fence. It's like chicken
Okay.
wire, so you can kind of see through it. She was digging on the kind of the other side of that fence. It's still her property. She was digging down past there with her husband doing some kind of landscaping, and they find a rug. And immediately she posted on TikTok. I think she had some kind of a following at this point, and people are like, you should probably tell the police about that.
100%. You found a buried rug?
Buried rug. And she calls the police. They get 2 cadaver dogs out there. And I've done a lot of research about cadaver dogs. Don't know.
What
if you
state is this again?
know. I'm actually not sure.
Okay.
I truly have done like little to no digging on this. Just
Okay.
like the fact of the story is kind of crazy. So cadaver dogs will have a marker for like when they've scented something. In cadaver dogs, they've sent human remains, which can be something as simple as menstrual blood.
Okay.
For example. So that's why they're not permissible in court. Like they're not used as evidence, but you will often use multiple cadaver dogs with multiple different handlers because the way that they interact is different. And oftentimes while one cadaver dog and their handler are inspecting an area, the other cadaver dog and other handler are like nowhere near the premise. So they don't even, so that the handler can't give any like
Clues or anything.
clues or anything to that dog. Both of these dogs queued at the dig site where
Okay.
that rug is, indicating that there are human remains
somewhere in the area, most likely. So the police come out, excavation team, they dig everything up. They're there for like basically an entire day digging things up.
Okay.
No human remains are found. That night, however, her house is broken into. Her laptop is broken.
So what happens?
Nothing. They don't like that was 6 days ago. The same day her laptop gets broken, her next door neighbor who has been like suspicious boards up their house.
Interesting.
I am like so sure that rug is piece of evidence in some way. Just because there's no body on it now doesn't mean that a cadaver dog can't hit on it.
And I need like names. I need like FBI investigate. Like, my standard for like believing things is like, I need it.
No, I don't necessarily think that like it could be anything, but that's like
spooky.
Imagine
spooky month, spooky.
And also like it seemed like this was like maybe not like a southern town, but like very like a close knit smaller community.
Sure,
it seemed like the entire town was like, why are there 16 police officers and like an entire cordoned off area and a big like heavy duty excavator behind your house right now? So I'm curious.
Whereas opposed to our beautiful utopian city, they'd be like, that's none of my business. And I've always said that.
I've always said that. That's in my alley. I don't care. It's behind the fence.
So tune in next week for Maya's episode, including potentially more hard details on the terrifying little TikTok she just described to us.
I followed that account on the Well I
sure
Laughed. Yeah, so we'll see if there's any new updates.
We'll see what happens.
It doesn't seem like there's anything right now, but my next story, 90% chance will be a two-parter. I'm planning on it being a two-parter. We'll see.
And so send in stories for the theme after this theme, which is...
still send in themes for dark secrets.
I want to know what your dark secret is.
Don't tell them not to send in their dark secrets. I want to hear what your dark secrets are. The theme after this will be vigilante vengeance.
So send in for that as well.
Yeah.
And if you commit a small crime, or I suspect you do, investigative journalist Grant Thomas is on the case. No,
and Monet.
I don't have the kind of time. Speech season starts literally in like 6 days.
That's why I said email me, and then you said, no, this is my thing. And I said, okay, Grant.
It is my, and then I did a true crime episode. It's like, it is my thing now.
You didn't do investigative.
It's mine now. Mine.
How does that microphone work, babe?
It's mine. I speak closer to it than I did at first. And then I hear it in my ears. Good. Excellent.
Okay.
That's a weird note for us to end. When I go missing, it was Maya. I just want that on the record now. Now you can't gone girl me, girl.
I was never going to. This whole business model really does kind of revolve around our relationship.
Sure. Well, and also, I'm so big. It'd be a pretty big hole to dig, and that's like not fun.
I don't have a rug big enough for that.
Nate Parketsy has this line, and he goes, "You ever tried the diggle hole? Have you noticed it's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life?
So difficult.
Every time I dig a hole, I'm like, I'm actually shocked people are digging these at all. Anytime someone's like, it was a shallow grave, it was like, yeah, probably wasn't planned to be.
Tired.
Yeah, exactly. We got to sign off. That's a much better line to end on, though.
That was good.
If you enjoyed this, you can find us on social media, where we are Well I Laughed Podcast. If you would like to send us your dark secrets or your vigilante vengeance, you can email us at wellalaughedpod@gmail.com. If you want to see those fun little cooking videos we were referencing or any other additional content, you can find more of that on Patreon, where we are Well I Laughed Podcast. Until then, connect, send us messages, send us
Rate
memes.
us 5 stars, please.
Rate us 5 stars, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye. We love you.
Bye.